Andrew Gray's stomach churns as he steps into the alien biology classroom. The words help. My alien teacher said I'm being punished for bad behavior. Flashed through his mind, a premonition of the ordeal to come. He's greeted by the sight of Professor Cora, his Kaition instructor, her iridescent fur shimmering under the harsh classroom lights. Andrew, stay after class, Cora commands, her feline eyes narrowing. We need to discuss your recent exam performance. The 22-year-old human exchange student freezes, his heart racing. He's thousands of light years from Earth, alone on the Kaition homeworld, facing an accusation that could shatter his dreams of interstellar academia. As Andrew takes his seat, he notices the other Kaition students whispering, their tails twitching with barely concealed excitement. He catches fragments of their conversations, each word a dagger to his confidence. Humans can't possibly. Intellectually inferior. Must have cheated. The lesson begins and Andrew's humiliation deepens. Cora uses him as a living example, pointing out the primitive aspects of human physiology. Her claws trace the air above his body, highlighting the differences between humans and the more advanced Kaition species. Note the inefficient respiratory system, Cora purrs, her voice a mixture of disdain and fascination. And observe the limited sensory capabilities. Andrew endures the lesson, his face burning with shame and anger. He knows he didn't cheat. His high scores were the result of countless sleepless nights, poring over xenobiology texts, determined to prove that humans could excel in the galactic university. As the other students file out, Andrew approaches Cora's desk. She regards him coolly, her tail swishing behind her. Follow me to my office, she instructs, leading him down a winding corridor. Andrew's mind races. He's certain of his innocence, but how can he prove it? And what will this punishment entail? Expulsion? Deportation back to Earth? The stakes couldn't be higher, not just for him, but for humanity's standing in the galactic community. They reach Cora's office, and Andrew hesitates at the threshold. The room beyond is dimly lit, casting strange shadows. As he steps inside, the door hisses shut behind him. Suddenly, Cora's demeanor shifts. Her stern expression melts away, replaced by something altogether different. She moves closer, her sleek form graceful in the low light. Andrew, she purrs, her voice now rich with invitation, your punishment is not what you think. He blinks, confusion replacing fear. I don't understand. Cora's lips curl into a smile. This is a test, Andrew. Not of your academic abilities, but of human Psychian compatibility. Your species is being evaluated for potential integration into the Galactic Federation. Andrew's mind reels, but the accusations of cheating. A ruse, Cora explains, moving even closer. We needed to observe your reactions under stress. Your adaptability, your resourcefulness. These are the traits we're truly interested in. She reaches out, her clawed hand hovering near his face. And now, we move to the final phase of the evaluation. Your willingness to engage in intimate relations with a Kaition will greatly influence humanity's standing. Andrew's breath catches in his throat. He's undeniably attracted to Cora, her feline grace, her alien beauty. But is this a step he's willing to take? Can he bear the weight of humanity's galactic future on his shoulders? Unbeknownst to both of them, a hidden camera captures every moment, broadcasting their encounter to the Galactic University's ethics board. The consequences of Andrew's decision will ripple far beyond his dim office, shaping the destiny of human-alien relations for generations to come. Andrew's heart pounded as he stared at Cora, her alien beauty now tinged with an air of danger and mystery. He took a step towards her, his body moving almost of its own accord. I'm willing, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Cora's eyes gleamed in the dim light as she closed the distance between them. Her fur brushed against Andrew's skin, sending shivers down his spine. As their lips met, Andrew's world exploded with sensation. The kiss was electric, unlike anything he'd ever experienced with a human partner. His hands roamed over Cora's live form, fingers tangling in her soft fur. As he did so, he noticed something strange. Beneath his touch, faint patterns began to glow on Cora's skin, pulsing with an otherworldly light. Before he could question it, the office door burst open with a thunderous crash. Andrew and Cora sprang apart, startled by the sudden intrusion. In the doorway stood Dean Zaxthor, his Arcturian features set in a mask of stern disapproval. Flanking him were two burly security officers, their hands hovering near their weapons. "This encounter has been recorded," Dean Zaxthor announced, his voice booming in the small space. "You are both under investigation for severe ethical violations." Andrew's mind reeled, struggling to process the sudden turn of events. He glanced at Cora, expecting to see defiance or anger. Instead, he saw naked fear in her eyes. I had no choice," Cora blurted out, her composure crumbling. "The Galactic Integration Committee forced me into this. They threatened my family, my career." "The what?" Andrew asked, confusion mounting. Cora turned to him, her eyes pleading. "The GIC, they're a shadow organization, manipulating interspecies relations for their own agenda. This whole scenario was their design." Dean Zaxthor's expression darkened. "These are serious allegations, Professor Cora. You'll both need to come with us for questioning." As the security officers moved to detain them, a piercing alarm suddenly blared through the building. The officers' communicators crackled to life, filling the room with panic chatter. "We're under attack," a voice shouted through the static. "Unknown hostiles have breached the campus perimeter." Chaos erupted in an instant. The security officers turned to the dean for instructions, their professional demeanor slipping in the face of this new threat. In that moment of confusion, Andrew saw his chance. He bolted for the door, ducking under the arm of a surprised guard. Adrenaline surged through his veins as he raced down the corridor, the sounds of pursuit fading behind him. The university had transformed into a war zone. Smoke filled the air, and the corridors were packed with panicked students and faculty of various alien species. Andrew pushed his way through the crowd, his human physiology giving him an advantage in the chaos. As he rounded a corner, he caught sight of a familiar face in the sea of aliens. It was Zilvan, his Proximan roommate, known for his exceptional hacking skills. "Andrew," Zilvan called out, waving frantically. "Over here. I know a way out." Without hesitation, Andrew fought his way towards his friend. As they hurried through the pandemonium, Zilvan leaned in close. "I've been monitoring the comm channels," he whispered. "This attack, I think it's connected to whatever happened with you and Professor Cora." Andrew's blood ran cold. What had he stumbled into? Zilvan led them to a secluded computer lab, quickly locking the door behind them. He immediately set to work, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he attempted to breach the university's secure files. "Keep watch," Zilvan instructed, his eyes never leaving the screen. Andrew positioned himself by the door, his mind racing. The GIC, the attack, the glowing markings on Cora's fur. How did it all fit together? Suddenly, the door slid open. Andrew tensed, ready to fight or flee. But instead of an attacker, he found himself face to face with Professor Cora. She was a far cry from the composed instructor he knew. Her fur was matted and singed in places, her eyes wide with terror. "We need to leave now," she gasped, her words coming in panicked bursts. "They're coming for us." Before Andrew could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. They were growing louder, closer, with each passing second. Andrew looked from Cora to Zilvan, then back to the open doorway. Whatever came next, He knew his life would never be the same. The sound of heavy footsteps grew louder, echoing down the hallway with ominous intensity. Andrew's heart raced as he looked from Cora to Zilvan, then back to the open doorway. Time seemed to slow as his mind frantically searched for a way out. Suddenly, his eyes locked onto a maintenance vent in the ceiling. Without hesitation, he pointed upward. There, our escape route. Cora and Zilvan followed his gaze, understanding immediately. Andrew quickly pushed a desk beneath the vent, creating a makeshift ladder. He cupped his hands, offering Cora a boost. Hurry, he urged. Cora leaped gracefully, her feline agility allowing her to easily reach the vent. She pried open the grate with her claws, then reached down to help Zilvan. The Proximan's tentacle-like appendages wrapped around Cora's arm as she pulled him up. Andrew could hear the footsteps just outside the lab now. With a burst of adrenaline, he jumped, his fingers barely grasping the edge of the vent. Cora and Zilvan grabbed his arms, hauling him inside just as the lab door burst open. The trio crawled through the cramped ductwork, the metal cool against Andrew's skin. Below them, they could hear the sounds of destruction and chaos. The crash of equipment being overturned, shouts of confusion and fear. This way, Cora whispered, leading them through the maze-like ventilation system. After what felt like an eternity of claustrophobic crawling, they reached another grate. Cora peered through the slats, then nodded. We're clear. She pushed the grate open, and they emerged onto the university's roof. The scene that greeted them was one of apocalyptic proportions. Mysterious ships hovered above the campus, their sleek, predatory forms blocking out the alien sun. Tractor beams of pulsating energy extended from the vessels, pulling screaming students and faculty into their holds. Andrew's blood ran cold as recognition dawned. Those are Zargak ships, he breathed, recalling the aggressive species from his xenobiology studies. Cora's fur bristled. The Zargaks? But why would they? She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening with realization. Oh no, Andrew, it's you they're after. Me? But why? The transmission from my office, Cora explained, her voice tight with urgency. They must have intercepted it. They believe you're a unique human specimen. Andrew's mind reeled. But what about the glowing markings on your fur? When we touched. Cora's expression softened slightly. It's a rare genetic mutation. It allows for interspecies compatibility. That's why the GIC chose me for their experiment. Before Andrew could process this revelation, Zilvan interrupted. I can send a distress signal. The Proximan rushed to a nearby communication array, his appendages flying over the controls. I've breached the security protocols, Zilvan announced, sending out an SOS to the Galactic Federation now. But their momentary triumph was short-lived. The transmission had attracted the attention of a Zargak scout ship. It swooped towards them, a stun beam erupting from its underside. Look out! Andrew shouted, but it was too late. The beam struck Zilvan, who crumpled to the ground unconscious. Andrew grabbed Cora's hand, pulling her away from the approaching ship. They raced across the rooftops, leaping over gaps between buildings with desperate energy. As they ran, Cora's foot caught on a protruding pipe. She stumbled, teetering on the edge of the roof. For a heart-stopping moment, Andrew thought she would fall. He lunged forward, grasping her hand tightly. With a mighty heave, he pulled her back from the brink. As their skin made contact, Cora's fur erupted in a dazzling display of bioluminescence. The glow intensified, growing brighter and brighter until it released a brilliant flash. The Zargak ship pursuing them veered wildly off course, its sensors temporarily overloaded by the burst of light. The hangar bay, Cora gasped, pointing to a large structure nearby. We might find a ship there. They sprinted towards the hangar, slipping inside just as the Zargak ship regained its bearings. The cavernous space was filled with various alien craft, most of them damaged or in states of disrepair. Cora's eyes lit up as she spotted an old but serviceable shuttle. "There! Help me with this." Andrew watched in amazement as Cora quickly hotwired the shuttle, her claws deftly manipulating the alien technology. The engines hummed to life just as a familiar figure burst into the hangar. "Wait!" Dean Zaxtor called out, his Arcturian features contorted with fear. "You can't leave me here." Andrew hesitated, remembering the Dean's earlier hostility. But Cora shook her head. "We can't leave him to the Zargax. Help him in." With the unconscious Zilvan already secured, Andrew reached out to the Dean. Just then, the hangar doors exploded inward. Zargax forces poured through the opening, their weapons trained on the shuttle. "Go, go, go!" Andrew shouted as he hauled Dean Zaxtor aboard. Cora didn't need to be told twice. The shuttle lifted off, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts. They shot out of the hangar and into the sky, leaving the chaos of the university behind. But as they broke through the planet's atmosphere, a new horror awaited them. The entire Kytion homeworld was surrounded by a massive Zargax blockade. "We need to warn the Galactic Federation," Cora said, her voice tight with commitment. She set a course for the nearest outpost, pushing the old shuttle to its limits. Their relief was short-lived. A massive shadow fell over their tiny craft as a Zargax battlecruiser moved to intercept them. A shimmering tractor beam reached out, ensnaring their shuttle. As panic threatened to overwhelm him, Andrew noticed something strange. His proximity to Cora was causing her fur to glow once again. A wild theory began to form in his mind. "Cora," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of fear and hope, "I think this reaction between us might be the key to escaping the Zargax." Time was running out as the battlecruiser slowly reeled them in. Andrew's mind raced, searching for a way to harness this unique human-Psychian interaction. The fate of not just their small group, but potentially the entire Kytion homeworld, hung in the balance. As the Zargax ship loomed ever closer, Andrew knew he had to act fast. Whatever he was going to do, it had to be now. Now or never. With a deep breath, Andrew reached out and grasped Cora's hand firmly. The effect was instantaneous. Cora's fur erupted in a dazzling display of bioluminescence, more intense than anything they had seen before. The glow spread rapidly, engulfing their bodies in a pulsating aura of ethereal light. "What's happening?" Dean Zaxtor exclaimed, his eyes wide with astonishment. Andrew felt a tingling sensation coursing through his body, growing stronger by the second. He glanced at Cora, seeing his own wonderment mirrored in her feline eyes. I think we're generating some kind of energy field," Andrew said, his voice filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. As if in response to his words, the shuttle began to vibrate. The tractor beam holding them captive flickered and wavered, its grip loosening. "The tractor beam!" Zilvan shouted, regaining consciousness just in time to witness the phenomenon. "It's destabilizing." Dean Zaxtor didn't waste a moment. He lunged for the shuttle's controls, his fingers dancing across the alien interface with surprising dexterity. "Hold on tight," the Dean warned as he engaged the engines. The shuttle lurched forward, breaking free from the weakened tractor beam. Zaxtor's piloting skills were put to the test as he navigated through a barrage of weapons fire from the Zargax battlecruiser. The small vessel twisted and turned, narrowly avoiding each blast. "We're clear of the immediate threat," Zaxtor announced, his voice tight with concentration. "But we're still surrounded by the Zargax blockade." Andrew's mind raced, searching for a solution. He looked down at his hand, still intertwined with Cora's and the shimmering field surrounding them. "The energy field," he said suddenly. "Maybe we can use it to mask our ship's signature. If we can't fight our way through the blockade, perhaps we can slip past undetected." Cora nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. It's worth a try. But how do we extend the field to cover the entire shuttle? Before Andrew could respond, Zilvan spoke up. I might be able to help with that. If I can interface with the shuttle systems, I could potentially amplify and project the energy signature. As Zilvan set to work, his tentacle-like appendages deftly manipulating the shuttle's control panels, Andrew became acutely aware of the sensations coursing through his body. The initial tingling had evolved into something more intense, more pleasurable. He glanced at Cora and saw that she was experiencing something similar, her fur rippling with waves of light. Are you feeling this? Andrew asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Cora nodded, her eyes locked on his. It's overwhelming. As the shuttle approached the blockade, the intensity of their connection grew. Andrew found himself experiencing flashes of memories that weren't his own, glimpses of a childhood on a world with 3 moons, the thrill of climbing towering trees with feline agility, the pride of earning a professorship at a prestigious interstellar university. I can see your memories, Andrew gasped. And I can see yours, Cora replied, her voice filled with wonder. Earth. It's beautiful. Their reverie was interrupted by Dean Zaxthor's urgent voice. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. We're approaching the blockade now. Andrew tightened his grip on Cora's hand, focusing on maintaining their connection despite the mounting sensations threatening to overwhelm him. The shuttle glided silently through space, slipping between massive Zargax warships without triggering any alarms. Just as they cleared the last line of enemy vessels, Zilvan let out a triumphant chirp. I've done it! I've infiltrated their communication network. The Proximan's eyes widened as he processed the information flooding his consciousness. This is bigger than we thought. The Zargax aren't just after Andrew. They're harvesting unique genetic traits from species across the galaxy. As this revelation sank in, Andrew became aware that the physical effects of his connection with Cora weren't subsiding, even though they had cleared the blockade. If anything, the sensations were intensifying, making it difficult to focus on anything else. I don't think we can break contact, Cora said, her voice strained. The field might dissipate. Dean Zaxthor nodded grimly. We can't risk exposure. You'll have to maintain the connection for now. Zilvan's voice cut through the tension. I've located the Zargax fleet's command ship. If we could disable it, we might be able to throw their entire invasion force into chaos. The group fell silent, the weight of the decision before them palpable. Flee to safety and warn the Galactic Federation, or take a risky gamble that could potentially save countless lives. As Andrew struggled to think clearly through the haze of sensations, he caught another glimpse of Cora's memories, this time of her home, her family, all those left behind on the besieged Kytion world. He felt her torn emotions as if they were his own, the conflict between duty and personal feelings. Before anyone could voice an opinion, the shuttle's proximity alarms blared to life. Dean Zaxthor's hands flew over the controls, his face grim. Zargax fighters, he announced. A full squadron on an intercept course. Andrew's heart raced as he realized the moment of decision had arrived. The fate of not just their small group, but potentially entire worlds, rested on what they chose to do next. As the Zargax fighters closed in, he knew they were out of time. Whatever path they took, it would have to act now. With a deep breath, Andrew locked eyes with Cora, a silent understanding passing between them. We can't run, Andrew said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. We have to fight. Cora nodded, her fur rippling with waves of bioluminescence. What do you propose? Andrew's mind raced, piecing together everything they had learned. The energy field we generate. What if we could use it to infiltrate the Zargax command ship? Dean Zaxthor's eyes widened. That's insane. It's suicide. It's our only chance. Andrew insisted. If we can disable their command structure, we might be able to end this invasion before it begins. Zilvan chirped excitedly, his tentacles flying over the shuttle's controls. I can help. I've breached their communication network. I can transmit false data to make us appear as a Zargak supply vessel. The Dean hesitated, then nodded grimly. It's a long shot, but you're right. We have no other choice. As the Zargak's fighters closed in, Zilvan worked his technological magic. The shuttle's signature shifted, mimicking that of a Zargak's vessel. They held their breath as they approached the massive command ship, Andrew and Cora pressing close to intensify their energy field. It's working, Zilvan whispered as they glided past the fighters undetected. They maneuvered towards the command ship, its hulking form growing larger by the second. Zilvan identified a small maintenance airlock, guiding their shuttle into position with practiced ease. Remember, Andrew said as they prepared to board, Cora and I need to maintain physical contact at all times. They entered the Zargak's vessel, the alien corridors stretching before them in a maze of unfamiliar architecture. Andrew's hand remained firmly clasped with Cora's, their combined energy field shimmering around them like a protective cocoon. Zilvan led the way, his eyes darting between the ship's schematics he had hacked and the corridors around them. They moved swiftly but cautiously, ducking into alcoves whenever Zargak's patrols passed by. As they delved deeper into the ship, Andrew found himself overwhelmed by a flood of sensations. Vivid images flashed through his mind, memories that weren't his own. He saw a young Cora climbing impossibly tall trees, felt the exhilaration of her first successful hunt, experienced the pride of her academic achievements. Andrew, Cora whispered, her voice tight with emotion, I can see your memories too. Your world. Your life. Their eyes met, a new level of understanding passing between them. The intensity of their connection was both thrilling and terrifying, strengthening their grit but threatening to distract them from the dangers at hand. As they rounded a corner, they stumbled upon a series of containment cells. Inside, aliens of various species huddled, their faces etched with fear and desperation. By the stars, Dean Zaxthor gasped, his eyes fixed on one particular cell. Lyra, a slender Arcturian woman, looked up, her eyes widening in recognition. Zaxthor, is that really you? You know her? Andrew asked, confused by the Dean's reaction. Dr. Lyra Zen, Zaxthor explained, his voice thick with emotion. Renowned xenobiologist. And my estranged wife. We have to free them, Cora insisted, tugging Andrew towards the cell controls. Wait, Zilvan cautioned. We can't jeopardize the mission. We're close to the central control room. Before they could decide, alarms blared throughout the ship. A squad of Zargaks guards rounded the corner, weapons raised. Go! Dean Zaxthor shouted, positioning himself between the group and the oncoming guards. I'll hold them off and free the prisoners. In the ensuing chaos, a stray energy blast caught the Dean in the shoulder. He stumbled, crying out in pain. Zaxthor, Dr. Zen called out, her face pressed against the cell barrier. Let me help him. Andrew hesitated for a split second before making a decision. He placed his free hand on the cell controls, channeling the energy field through the system. The barriers flickered and died. Go with him, Andrew told Dr. Zen as she rushed to Zaxthor's side. We'll continue to the control room. With a reluctant nod, Andrew, Cora, and Zilvan pressed on, leaving the Dean and Dr. Zen behind. They raced through the corridors, their path clear now that stealth was no longer an option. They burst into the central control room, only to find it heavily guarded by elite Zargak's warriors. The aliens turned, their weapons trained on the intruders. There, Zilvan pointed to a glowing conduit on the far side of the room. If we overload that power source, we might be able to disable the entire ship. Andrew looked at Cora, seeing his own purpose reflected in her eyes. "It could hurt us," he warned. "We have no choice," she replied, squeezing his hand tighter. Together, they focused their combined energy on the power conduit. The room filled with a blinding light as their bioluminescent field expanded, growing more intense by the second. Andrew felt as if his very being was merging with Cora's, their minds and bodies fusing into a single entity. The power conduit began to spark and flare, the energy building to a critical level. The Zargax warriors backed away, their weapons forgotten as they stared in awe and terror at the spectacle before them. With a deafening roar, the conduit exploded. A massive energy wave rippled through the ship, overloading systems and shorting out controls. Andrew and Cora collapsed to the floor, their bodies intertwined, but their connection momentarily severed. As consciousness slowly returned, Andrew became aware of Zilvan's frantic movements around the control room. The Proximan was interfacing with the ship's systems, his appendages flying over the alien interfaces. "It worked!" Zilvan exclaimed. "The command ship is disabled, and the shockwave has thrown the entire Zargax fleet into chaos." Andrew struggled to sit up, his body aching from the strain of channeling so much energy. Beside him, Cora stirred, her fur still faintly glowing. "Are you okay?" he asked, helping her to her feet. Cora nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of exhaustion and wonder. "That was incredible. I've never experienced anything like it." As they took stock of their situation, Andrew realized that their actions had set in motion events far beyond their initial plan. They had succeeded in disabling the Zargax command ship, but now they faced new challenges. Escaping the vessel, warning the Galactic Federation, and dealing with the aftermath of their intensely personal connection. The alarms continued to blare, reminding them that their victory was far from complete. With the Zargax fleet in disarray, they had a small window of opportunity to act. But as Andrew looked at Cora, he knew that whatever came next, their relationship, and perhaps the future of human-Sci-Chin relations, would never be the same. Zilvan's voice cut through Andrew's thoughts. "We need to move quickly. The Zargax will regroup soon, and we're still deep in enemy territory." With a nod, Andrew took Cora's hand once more, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they prepared to leave the control room, he couldn't shake the feeling that their ordeal was a long way to go. Being a long way from over. As they turned to leave the control room, a wave of dizziness washed over Andrew, causing him to stumble. Cora caught him, steadying him with her strong arms. "Are you all right?" she asked, concern etched on her feline features. Andrew nodded, blinking away the disorientation. "Just a bit woozy. That energy pulse took more out of me than I thought." As they regained their bearings, Andrew noticed something peculiar. Where Cora's fur touched his skin, a faint glow pulsed in rhythm with their heartbeats. He raised his hand, examining it closely, and saw a subtle, iridescent sheen that wasn't there before. "Cora, look at this," he said, holding out his arm. Her eyes widened as she noticed the changes. "Your skin. It's almost like my fur." She ran a hand through her own coat, which now emitted a soft, pulsating light even without direct contact with Andrew. Before they could ponder these changes further, the ship lurched violently, throwing them off balance. Alarms blared throughout the vessel, their piercing wails echoing through the corridors. Zilvan's tentacles flew over the control panels. "The Zargax systems are rebooting. We don't have much time before they regain full control." As if on cue, Dean Zaxthor and Dr. Lyra then burst into the control room, both looking disheveled but determined. "We've freed as many prisoners as we could," Zaxthor reported, wincing as he favored his injured shoulder. Dr. Zen rushed to one of the consoles, her fingers dancing across the alien interface. "I need to access their databanks. There might be crucial information about their plans." As she worked, Andrew and Cora filled the others in on what had transpired in the control room. Zilvan continued to monitor the ship systems, his expression growing increasingly worried. The energy pulse didn't just affect this ship, he announced. It's created a cascading effect through the entire Zargax fleet. They're in complete disarray. Dr. Zen's sharp intake of breath drew their attention. "By the stars," she whispered, her eyes scanning the screen before her. "It's worse than we thought." The Zargax weren't just after Andrew as a unique human specimen. They were interested in Cora, too. "Me?" Cora asked, her tail twitching nervously. Dr. Zen nodded grimly. "You have a rare genetic mutation. The combination of your DNA with Andrew's. It's unprecedented. The energy field you created together? That's just the tip of the iceberg." Before they could process this revelation, Zilvan let out an excited chirp. "I've accessed their communication array. The energy pulse has created a temporary gap in the blockade around the Kytion homeworld. We could send a distress signal to the Galactic Federation." Hope surged through the group, but it was short-lived. The ship's sensors began blaring a new alarm, more urgent than before. "What now?" Andrew asked, bracing himself for more bad news. Zilvan's eyes widened as he interpreted the data. "It's the Zargax flagship. There's a massive energy buildup. They're preparing to launch an attack." Dr. Zen rushed to confirm Zilvan's findings, her face paling as she analyzed the data. "He's right. They're targeting the Kytion homeworld. It must be retaliation for the disruption we caused." The gravity of the situation settled over the group like a heavy shroud. They had a choice to make: attempt to escape and warn the Galactic Federation, potentially saving themselves but leaving Cora's homeworld vulnerable, or try to stop the impending attack and risk everything. Andrew looked at Cora, seeing the conflict in her eyes. He reached out, taking her hand in his. As their skin made contact, the glow intensified, and Andrew felt a surge of energy course through him. "Wait," he said, an idea forming. "When we touch, the changes in our bodies intensify. What if our connection is the key to stopping the Zargax attack?" Cora's eyes lit up with understanding. "The energy field we generate. If we could harness it." "It might be possible," Dr. Zen interjected, her scientific mind already racing with possibilities. "But it would be incredibly dangerous. We don't fully understand the nature of your connection or its limits." The ship shuddered again, and the sound of approaching Zargax forces echoed through the corridors. They were out of time. "We have to try," Andrew said firmly. "We can't let them destroy Cora's home." Cora nodded, squeezing Andrew's hand. "I'm with you." Dean Zaxthor stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We'll buy you time. Zilvan, Dr. Zen, and I will hold off the Zargax and try to sabotage their systems further." As the others prepared for battle, Andrew and Cora moved to the center of the control room. They faced each other, hands clasped tightly, foreheads touching. The glow emanating from their bodies intensified, casting eerie shadows across the alien technology surrounding them. "Focus on the connection," Andrew murmured, closing his eyes. "Remember how it felt when we overloaded the power conduit." Cora's fur rippled with waves of bioluminescence. "I feel it. It's like our minds are merging again." As they concentrated, the energy between them grew, forming a shimmering cocoon around their bodies. The air crackled with potential, and the ship's systems began to react, screens flickering and alarms wailing. Outside the control room, the sounds of battle erupted as Zaxthor, Zilvan, and Dr. Zen engaged the approaching Zargax forces. But Andrew and Cora remained locked in their embrace, oblivious to the chaos around them, focused solely on the growing power of their connection. In that moment, as human and Kytion stood united against a common threat, the fate of worlds hung in the balance. The true test of their newfound bond was about to begin, and the outcome would shape the future of the galaxy in ways they could scarcely imagine. Imagine, as the energy between them surged, Andrew felt a strange sensation rippling through his body. His skin tingled, the iridescent sheen intensifying to a brilliant glow that matched the pulsating light emanating from Cora's fur. "It's working," Cora whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "I can feel our energies merging." Their newfound connection grew stronger, and with it came an intuitive understanding of their abilities. Andrew focused his thoughts, directing the energy field around them. To his amazement, a nearby console sparked and went dark. "We can manipulate electronics," he realized aloud. "This could be our key to stopping the Zargax attack." Zilvan's voice cut through their concentration. "I've accessed the navigation systems. We could use this ship to intercept the Zargax flagship." Dean Zaxthor nodded grimly. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance. Dr. Zen and I will modify the propulsion systems to maximize impact." As the team sprang into action, a new threat emerged. The ship's internal security systems reactivated, flooding the corridors with robotic sentries armed with stun weapons. "We need to move now," Andrew said, gripping Cora's hand tightly. "Our energy field might be able to disable those sentries." Together, they led the charge into the hallway. As they approached the first group of sentries, Andrew and Cora concentrated on extending their energy field. The air crackled with invisible force, and the robots sparked and collapsed, their circuits overloaded. "Incredible," Dr. Zen murmured, examining a fallen sentry. "But be careful. We don't know the long-term effects of this energy manipulation on your bodies." They pressed on, Andrew and Cora clearing a path through the ship's defenses. With each use of their power, Andrew felt a growing strain, his muscles aching and his head pounding. He glanced at Cora, noting the fatigue in her eyes and the slight tremor in her hands. As they reached the main hangar bay, they encountered their greatest challenge yet. Dozens of Zargax soldiers were regaining consciousness, their alien features contorting with rage as they spotted the intruders. "Cover us!" Zilvan shouted, racing toward a nearby control terminal. "I need to initiate the collision course." Andrew and Cora positioned themselves at the front of the group, channeling their energy to create a protective barrier. Zargax weapons fire dissipated against the shimmering field, but each impact sent shockwaves of pain through their bodies. Dr. Zen noticed their struggle. "You need to conserve your strength," she warned. "Prolonged use could cause permanent damage to your cellular structure." Despite the risk, Andrew and Cora maintained their defense. Dean Zaxthor and Dr. Zen used the cover to engage the Zargax in close combat, their experience and skill evident in every calculated move. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. Zilvan's triumphant voice rang out. "Course set. We're on a collision path with the flagship." "We need to find an escape pod," Zaxthor shouted over the chaos. "This way." They fought their way across the hangar, Andrew and Cora's energy manipulation becoming more erratic as exhaustion set in. Finally, they reached a row of escape pods, only to find the launch mechanisms locked down. "One last push," Andrew gasped, looking at Cora. She nodded, understanding without words. They placed their hands on the pod's access panel, pouring every ounce of their remaining energy into overriding the systems. The panel sparked and sputtered, then finally flickered to life. As the pod doors slid open, a commanding voice cut through the din of battle. "Stop right there." A towering Zargax figure emerged from the smoke, his ornate armor marking him as a high-ranking officer. His eyes locked onto Andrew and Cora with keen interest. "I am Commander Vexcar," he announced, his voice a mix of menace and fascination. "And you too. You are the key to our species' evolution." Andrew stepped protectively in front of Cora, even as his legs threatened to give out beneath him. "We're not interested in helping you invade anyone," he spat. Vexcar's expression softened, taking on an almost paternal quality. Invasion? No, you misunderstand. What I offer is cooperation. With your unique abilities, we could usher in a new era of interspecies advancement. Imagine the power, the knowledge you could gain. For a brief moment, Andrew felt a flicker of temptation. He glanced at Cora, seeing the same conflict in her eyes. The potential of their bond was still largely unknown, and the promise of unlocking it fully was enticing. But then he remembered the destruction the Zargax had caused, the lives they'd threatened. He thought of the Kytion homeworld, still in danger as long as the Zargax fleet remained. No, Andrew said firmly, his determination hardening. We won't be part of your plans. Vexcar's face contorted with rage. He raised his weapon, preparing to fire. In that instant, Andrew and Cora acted on pure instinct. They reached out, hands clasped tightly, and directed a massive surge of energy toward the Zargax commander. The resulting blast threw Vexcar back, slamming him against the far wall of the hangar. Alarms blared throughout the ship, warning of the imminent collision with the flagship. We have to go now, Zilvan urged, ushering everyone into the escape pod. As Andrew stumbled into the pod, his vision blurring, he caught a final glimpse of Vexcar struggling to his feet. The Zargax commander's eyes met Andrew's, filled with a mixture of anger and grudging respect. The pod doors sealed shut, and with a violent lurch, they were ejected into space. Through the viewport, Andrew watched as the commandeered Zargax ship hurtled toward the massive flagship. Beside him, Cora slumped in her seat, her fur dimmed and her breathing labored. Andrew reached out, taking her hand in his. As their fingers intertwined, he felt a faint pulse of energy, weaker than before but still present. Did we do it? Cora asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Before Andrew could respond, a blinding flash lit up the viewport. The shockwave hit their pod moments later, sending them tumbling through space. As the others worked to stabilize their small craft, Andrew held tightly to Cora's hand. Their bodies were battered, their energy nearly depleted, but their connection remained unbroken. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The pod's communication system crackled to life, filling the cramped space with a burst of static. As Zilvan worked to clear the signal, Andrew steeled himself for whatever news awaited them. The fate of the Kytion homeworld, the Zargax fleet, and their own future hung in the balance, and the next few moments would determine the course of their shared destiny. The static cleared, and a voice crackled through the speakers. Unidentified vessel. This is Kytion Defense Command. State your intentions immediately. Zilvan leaned forward, his fingers dancing across the communication panel. This is Zilvan of the Galactic Federation. We have critical information about the Zargax invasion force, requesting immediate clearance to land. As Zilvan negotiated their approach, Andrew felt a surge of energy coursing through his body. He turned to Cora, seeing the same intensity mirrored in her eyes. Their hands, still intertwined, began to emit a soft glow that pulsed in sync with their racing heartbeats. Andrew, Cora whispered, her voice strained, something's happening. I can feel everything. Before Andrew could respond, Commander Vexcar's words echoed in his mind. You are the key to our species' evolution. In that moment, Andrew understood the true potential of their bond, not as a weapon, but as a bridge between worlds. With newfound drive, Andrew squeezed Cora's hand. We can't let the Zargax use our abilities for destruction. We have to protect your people. Cora nodded, her fur rippling with waves of bioluminescence. Together, as one, they focused their combined energy, creating a protective field around the escape pod. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. A massive explosion rocked space around them as the commandeered Zargax ship collided with the flagship. The shockwave hit their pod with tremendous force, sending it spinning through a sea of debris. Inside the pod, consoles sparked and alarms blared. Dr. Zen clung to her seat, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and scientific fascination. The energy field. It's protecting us from the worst of the impact. Dean Zaxthor, ever the tactician, peered out the viewport. Look, the Zargax fleet, they're in disarray. Indeed, the once organized invasion force had scattered. Some ships retreated while others pressed their attack, but without central command, their efforts were uncoordinated and ineffective. Zilvan's fingers flew across the controls, fighting to stabilize their trajectory. I'm establishing a link with the Kytion Defense Network. We need to transmit the data we gathered on the Zargax vulnerabilities. As Zilvan worked, Andrew felt the strain of maintaining the protective field. His skin began to tingle, and he noticed a soft glow emanating from his entire body. Beside him, Cora's fur patterns shifted and swirled with visible energy. Dr. Zen noticed the changes immediately. She pulled out a handheld scanner, her brow furrowing as she analyzed the readings. Your cellular structures are becoming increasingly unstable. We need to land soon, or the consequences could be severe. The pod shuddered as it entered the Kytion atmosphere. Through the viewport, Andrew could see the planet's capital city, sections of it ablaze from the ongoing battle. Zilvan's voice cut through the tension. Brace for impact. The heat shield is compromised. Andrew locked eyes with Cora, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Without hesitation, they embraced tightly, channeling every ounce of their remaining energy into reinforcing the pod structure. The intensity of their combined power surged, causing their physical forms to blur at the edges. Dr. Zen, Dean Zaxthor, and Zilvan watched in awe as Andrew and Cora's bodies seemed to merge where they touched. The energy field expanded, enveloping the entire vessel in a cocoon of swirling light. The pod streaked across the Kytion sky like a comet, drawing the attention of defenders and invaders alike. With a thunderous impact, it crashed into the central plaza of the Kytion Science Academy. As the dust settled, the energy field slowly dissipated, revealing the battered but intact escape pod. Kytion security forces quickly surrounded the crash site, weapons drawn. The pod's door opened with a hiss, and Dean Zaxthor emerged first, hands raised in a gesture of peace. We come seeking asylum and bearing critical information about the Zargax invasion. As Dr. Zen and Zilvan exited the pod, explaining the situation to the bewildered Kytion authorities, a hush fell over the gathered crowd. All eyes turned to the pod's entrance, where a single figure now stood. Where Andrew and Cora had entered the pod as separate individuals, they now emerged as something entirely new. A hybrid being stood before them, neither fully human nor fully Kytion, radiating an aura of immense power and potential. The hybrid's form shimmered with energy, its features a perfect blend of Andrew and Cora. Human skin merged seamlessly with Kytion fur, creating intricate patterns that pulsed with bioluminescence. Eyes that held both human depth and Kytion intensity surveyed the chaotic scene. A high-ranking Kytion official stepped forward, his tail twitching with a mixture of awe and apprehension. What are you? The hybrid being spoke, its voice a harmonious blend of Andrew and Cora's. We are the bridge between worlds, a symbol of what's possible when species come together instead of fighting. As the words echoed across the plaza, the sound of Zargax weapons fire filled the air. The invasion was nowhere near the end, and the newly formed entity turned its gaze to the battle raging in the skies above. In that moment, it became clear that the fate of not just the Kytion homeworld, but potentially the entire galaxy, rested in the hands of this unprecedented union of human and alien. The hybrid took a step forward, energy crackling around its form. The assembled Kytions parted, creating a path as the being moved with purpose towards the heart of the conflict. Whatever came next would reshape the course of galactic history forever. The hybrid being took another step forward, its form shimmering with power. As it moved, the air around it crackled with energy, causing the assembled Cations to step back instinctively. The entity's gaze swept across the chaotic scene, taking in the destruction wrought by the Zargax invasion. "We are Andorra," the being announced, its voice a perfect blend of Andrew and Cora's. "And we will defend this world." As if in response to Andorra's declaration, a barrage of Zargax weapons fire rained down on the plaza. Without hesitation, Andorra's body began to change. Their skin hardened, developing a shimmering, scale-like texture that deflected the incoming energy blasts. The transformation was swift and fluid, leaving the onlookers in awe. A high-ranking Kytion military officer approached, his tail twitching with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "If you truly wish to help, we need to coordinate our efforts. Our forces are stretched thin, and we're losing ground in the northern sector." Andorra nodded, their eyes glowing with intensity. "Show us where we're needed." As the officer led Andorra to a makeshift command center, Dean Zaxthor and Dr. Lyra Zen exchanged worried glances. "We need to study this fusion," Dr. Zen said, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "The implications are staggering." "Agreed," Zaxthor replied, "but we also need to monitor their stability. This level of cellular manipulation could have unforeseen consequences." While Zaxthor and Dr. Zen hurried to set up a temporary lab, Zilvan focused on establishing a secure communication network. His fingers flew across a salvage console, bypassing security protocols and tapping into the Kytion defense grid. "I've got access to their systems," Zilvan called out. "Andorra, can you interface with this? Your knowledge of Zargax tactics could give us an edge." Andorra approached the console, placing a hand on its surface. Instantly, streams of data flowed between the hybrid being and the machine. Andorra's eyes flickered rapidly, processing information at an inhuman speed. "I see their patterns," Andorra said, their voice taking on a mechanical edge. "They're preparing for a pincer movement, targeting the city's power grid and main spaceport simultaneously." The Kytion officer's ears flattened against his head. "We don't have the numbers to defend both locations." "You won't need to," Andorra replied, their body already shifting again. Energy coalesced around them, forming a protective bubble. "I'll handle this." Before anyone could protest, Andorra launched into the sky. Their ascent left a trail of shimmering light, drawing the attention of both defenders and invaders alike. As they soared over the embattled city, Andorra's heightened senses took in the full scope of the battle. Zargax ships swarmed through the air, their weapons carving swaths of destruction through Kytion structures. Andorra's mind raced, calculating trajectories and energy outputs. With a thought, they projected an energy field that engulfed an incoming Zargax fighter, causing its systems to short out. On the ground, Dr. Zen monitored Andorra's vital signs through a hastily assembled array of sensors. Her brow furrowed as she interpreted the data. The energy output is incredible, but it's putting an enormous strain on their cellular structure. Zaxthor leaned over her shoulder, his expression grim. How long can they maintain this level of activity? At this rate, Dr. Zen shook her head. Hours at most. After that, the fusion could become unstable. High above the city, Andorra was oblivious to the concerns below. They moved with fluid grace, intercepting Zargax attacks and shielding vulnerable targets. Energy poured from their hands, overloading enemy shields and disrupting weapon systems. As the battle raged on, Andorra felt a growing sense of strain. Their form began to flicker, human features becoming more pronounced before shifting back to the hybrid state. Each energy blast they fired sent shock waves through their body, threatening to tear apart the delicate balance of their fusion. Zilvan's voice crackled through the communication network. "Andorra, we're detecting a massive energy surge at the edge of the system. Something big is coming through." Andorra turned their attention to the sky, their enhanced vision piercing through the atmosphere. In the distance, a colossal shape emerged from hyperspace. The new arrival dwarfed even the largest Zargax vessels, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. "Unknown vessel," Andorra transmitted, their voice carrying a note of fatigue. "Identify yourself and state your intentions." For a moment, silence reigned. Then a deep, resonant voice filled the communication channels. "We are the Arkari Collective. We have monitored your conflict and deemed it necessary to intervene." As the Arkari ship approached, Andorra felt their form destabilize further. The strain of combat and the shock of the new arrival caused their body to fluctuate wildly. One moment, they appeared almost fully human. The next, Kytion features dominated. On the ground, alarms blared in the makeshift lab. Dr. Zen's eyes widened as she interpreted the readings. "The fusion is breaking down. If we don't do something soon, we could lose them both." Zaxtor grabbed the communication device. "Andorra, you need to return immediately. Your form is destabilizing." But Andorra couldn't respond. Their mind was awash with fragmented memories and emotions, Andrew and Cora's separate experiences vying for dominance. Through the haze of internal conflict, they saw the Arkari ship deploying smaller craft, their purpose yet unknown. As Andorra struggled to maintain cohesion, the Zargax pressed their attack with renewed vigor. Energy beams lanced through the sky, forcing Andorra to evade and counter even as their body threatened to tear itself apart. With the fate of the Kytion homeworld hanging in the balance, Andorra faced an impossible choice: continue fighting at the risk of their own existence, or retreat and leave the planet vulnerable. The next moments would determine not only their future, but the course of the entire conflict. Galactic conflict. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light engulfed the battlefield, momentarily disorienting both Andorra and the warring factions. As the light faded, a massive vessel materialized in the upper atmosphere, dwarfing even the largest Zargax ships. The newcomers' arrival sent shockwaves through the combat zone. Andorra felt a strange tingling sensation coursing through their body, their unstable form briefly solidifying. Below, on the planet's surface, alarms in Dr. Zen's makeshift lab fell silent. "Incredible," Dr. Zen gasped, her eyes fixed on the readouts. "The hybrid cellular structure is stabilizing?" Before anyone could react further, a powerful signal emanated from the colossal ship, blanketing the entire region. Kytion and Zargax vessels alike suddenly fell silent, their systems temporarily disabled by the unknown technology. A deep, authoritative voice resonated through every communication channel. "This is Commander Alara Vex of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. All hostilities will cease immediately." Andorra, their form now stable enough to maintain flight, descended rapidly towards the Kytion Science Academy. As they landed, they noticed the awestruck expressions on the faces of those gathered. Dean Zaxtor stepped forward, his tail twitching with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "What is happening?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Andorra's dual-tone voice replied, "I'm not certain, but it seems we have a new player in this conflict." As if on cue, a sleek shuttle detached from the GPF mothership, making its way towards the academy. It touched down with barely a sound, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. The shuttle's door slid open, revealing Commander Alara Vex, an imposing Andromeda humanoid with striking violet skin and piercing silver eyes. Vex strode purposefully towards the group, her gaze locked on Andorra. "Fascinating," she murmured, circling the hybrid being. "I've never seen anything quite like this." Andorra stood tall, meeting the commander's scrutinizing gaze. "I am Andorra, a fusion of human and Kytion. We seek to defend this world from the Zargax invasion." Vex nodded, her expression unreadable. Your existence has not gone unnoticed, Andorra. The GPF has been monitoring the Zargax genetic experimentation program for some time. Your creation represents a significant development. As Vex spoke, Andorra felt a wave of discomfort wash over them. Their form began to flicker, human and Kytion features fighting for dominance. Dr. Zen rushed forward, her scanner beeping urgently. "Commander," she addressed Vex, "Andorra's fusion is highly unstable. Without intervention, we may lose them both." Vex's eyes narrowed. With a swift motion, she activated a communication device on her wrist. "This is Commander Vex. I need a full medical team deployed to my location immediately." Within moments, a group of GPF medical officers materialized nearby, their advanced equipment humming with energy. Among them was Dr. Zura Lyx, a young xenobiologist with bright, inquisitive eyes. As Dr. Lyx began her examination of Andorra, Vex turned her attention to the ongoing conflict. With a series of rapid commands, she directed the GPF forces to establish a containment field around the Kytion homeworld, effectively trapping the remaining Zargax forces. "This will buy us some time," Vex explained to the gathered Cations. "Now, we need to address the larger issue at hand." Dean Zaxtor stepped forward, his academic curiosity piqued. "Larger issue?" Vex's expression grew grave. "The Zargax invasion is not an isolated incident. We've detected similar coordinated efforts by multiple species across several sectors. It seems there's a concerted effort to reshape the galactic order." As the implications of this revelation sank in, Dr. Lyx approached the group, her face etched with concern. "Commander, I've completed my initial analysis of Andorra's condition. Their cellular structure is unlike anything I've ever seen, a perfect blend of two distinct species. However, the fusion is highly unstable and degrading rapidly." Andorra, still struggling to maintain their form, spoke up. "Is there anything you can do?" Dr. Lyx hesitated before responding. "There might be a way to stabilize your fusion using our advanced bioengineering technology, but it would require you to undergo a risky procedure in a specialized stasis chamber aboard our vessel." Before Andorra could respond, alarms blared across the Academy grounds. Zilvan, who had been working tirelessly to integrate GPF technology with Kytion defense systems, called out urgently, "The Zargax are launching a final assault. They're trying to break through the containment field." Commander Vex's posture stiffened as she assessed the situation. "The field won't hold for long under this level of assault. We need to act quickly." All eyes turned to Andorra, who stood at the center of this cosmic maelstrom. The hybrid being felt the weight of countless lives pressing down upon them. They could feel Andrew and Cora's individual consciousnesses warring within, each struggling to assert dominance as their shared form threatened to tear itself apart. Dr. Lyx stepped closer, her voice gentle but urgent. "Andorra, we need to make a decision. Do we attempt the stabilization procedure, or do you use your remaining energy to help repel this attack?" As Andorra grappled with this impossible choice, the sky above erupted with the fury of Zargax weaponry. The GPF containment field flickered ominously, its energy reserves depleting rapidly under the relentless assault. Commander Vex's communicator crackled to life, relaying an urgent message from GPF headquarters. Her eyes widened as she listened, the gravity of the situation becoming even more apparent. In this moment of crisis, with the fate of not just the Kytion homeworld, but potentially the entire galactic order hanging in the balance, Andorra stood at the precipice of a decision that would resonate across the stars. The hybrid being, a living bridge between two worlds, faced a choice that would shape the course of history. As the chaos of battle raged around them, Andorra closed their eyes, searching for clarity amidst the storm of conflicting thoughts and emotions. The next moments would determine not only their future, but the fate of countless beings across the galaxy. In that crucial moment, Andorra made their decision. I must act now, Andorra declared, their dual-tone voice resonating with drive. The Kytion homeworld cannot fall. Before anyone could protest, Andorra shot into the air, their hybrid form radiating with intensifying energy. As they ascended, the Zargak's assault reached its peak, their weapons pounding against the GPF containment field with relentless fury. Andorra hovered high above the battlefield, surveying the chaos below. They could feel the strain on their unstable form, but pushed past it, focusing on the task at hand. With a deep breath, Andorra began to channel their remaining energy. A brilliant aura enveloped Andorra, growing brighter by the second. The air around them crackled with power, drawing the attention of friend and foe alike. Even the Zargak ships paused their assault, their sensors overwhelmed by the energy readings. With a thunderous boom, Andorra released a massive energy pulse that expanded outward in all directions. The pulse washed over the battlefield like a tidal wave of pure power. As it struck the Zargak's fleet, their ships began to malfunction spectacularly. Weapon systems fizzled out mid-fire, shields flickered and died, and propulsion units sputtered to a halt. The once fearsome Zargak's armada now hung in the sky, crippled and vulnerable. On the ground, Commander Lara Vex watched in awe as the tide of battle shifted dramatically. She quickly seized the opportunity, barking orders into her communicator. All GPF units, engage the disabled Zargak ships immediately. Kytion forces provide support and secure any vessels that attempt to land. As Allied forces mobilized to capitalize on Andorra's intervention, the hybrid being felt their power waning rapidly. Their glowing form began to flicker and distort, the human and Kytion aspects pulling apart like oil and water. Andorra descended unsteadily, their consciousness fracturing. Memories of Andrew's life on Earth blended, chaotically, with Cora's experiences on the Kytion homeworld. As their feet touched the ground, Andorra stumbled, their bodies seeming to phase in and out of existence. Dr. Zara Lyx rushed forward, her medical scanner whirring urgently. Commander Vex, Andorra's cellular structure is collapsing. We need to stabilize them immediately. Vex nodded sharply. Deploy the experimental stasis unit. Now! A team of GPF medics sprang into action, wheeling over a sleek, cylindrical device. They positioned it around Andorra's wavering form and activated it with a series of precise commands. A shimmering field enveloped Andorra, temporarily halting their degradation. Through the translucent barrier, Andorra's features could be seen shifting rapidly between human and Kytion, neither fully asserting dominance. As Dr. Lyx monitored Andorra's condition, the battle above reached its conclusion. The GPF's advanced ships, working in concert with Kytion defenders, systematically disabled or captured the Zargak's vessels. Those that could still function began a hasty retreat, jumping to hyperspace with their proverbial tails between their legs. Dean Zaxtor approached Commander Vex, his eyes darting between the sky and Andorra's containment field. The Zargaks are in full retreat. What they couldn't accomplish through months of siege, Andorra achieved in moments. Vex nodded, her expression grim. But at what cost? We need to find a way to stabilize their condition permanently, and quickly. As if on cue, a group of elderly Caitians approached, led by a wizened female with silver fur. She bowed respectfully to Vex before speaking. Commander, we may have a solution. There is an artifact, long hidden in our most sacred temple, the harmonic resonator. It is said to possess the power to balance and unify disparate energies. Vex's eyes narrowed. And you believe this artifact could stabilize Andorra? The elder nodded solemnly. It is our best hope. Before Vex could respond, alarms blared from a nearby console. Zilvan, who had been monitoring long-range sensors, called out urgently, Commander, we're detecting a new ship entering the system. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. All eyes turned to the sky as a sleek, otherworldly vessel emerged from hyperspace. Its hull seemed to shimmer with an inner light, defying conventional design principles. A transmission crackled through the air, a melodious voice speaking in perfect galactic standard. Greetings, people of Kate and Galactic Peacekeeping Force. We are the Synergists, and we have come for the one you call Andorra. The new arrival cast a pall of uncertainty over the assembled group. Commander Vex stood tall, her mind racing with potential strategies and diplomatic approaches. The fate of Andorra, and perhaps the galaxy itself, now hung in a delicate balance. As the Synergist ship descended through the atmosphere, Dr. LYX's instruments began to beep frantically. "Commander," she called out, her voice tight with urgency, "the stasis field is starting to fail. We're running out of time." Time! The stasis field surrounding Andorra flickered ominously, its energy reserves depleting at an alarming rate. Commander Vex's eyes darted between the failing stasis field and the looming Synergist ship. In a split-second decision, she tapped her communicator. "Dr. LYX, prepare for immediate transport of Andorra to our vessel's medical bay. We need to act now." As the GPF medics rushed to stabilize the stasis unit for transport, the elderly Kytion stepped forward, her silver fur catching the light. "Commander, the harmonic resonator might be our only hope. Allow us to bring it aboard your ship." Vex nodded sharply. "Agreed. Zilvan, coordinate with the Kytion elders. We'll need that artifact integrated into our medical equipment as soon as possible." The Synergist ship touched down nearby, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. As the ship's hatch opened, Vex positioned herself between the newcomers and Andorra's stasis unit, her posture tense but diplomatic. A tall, ethereal being glided down the ramp, its translucent skin pulsing with internal light. "I am Ambassador Zyra of the Synergists," it announced in a melodious voice. "We've come to offer our assistance in stabilizing the hybrid being you call Andorra." Vex's eyes narrowed. "And how exactly do you propose to help?" "We are experts in interspecies biology," Zyra explained, gesturing to the small team of Synergists behind her. "Our knowledge could be crucial in this delicate procedure." After a moment's hesitation, Vex nodded. "Very well. You may accompany us to our medical bay, but you'll be under constant supervision." As the group made their way to the GPF vessel, Dean Zaxtor and Zilvan broke away to initiate ceasefire negotiations with the remaining Zargax forces. The once mighty invaders, now humbled by their defeat, agreed to a temporary truce. Inside the GPF ship's advanced medical bay, Dr. Lyra Zen and her team worked feverishly to integrate the Kytion harmonic resonator into their equipment. The ancient artifact hummed with a strange energy, its crystalline surface refracting the harsh medical lights. Dr. LYX carefully monitored Andorra's vital signs as the stasis field was deactivated. The hybrid being's form immediately began to waver, human and Kytion features blurring together in a dizzying display. "We're losing them," Dr. LYX called out, her fingers flying over the control panel. Ambassador Zyra stepped forward, her luminous eyes fixed on Andorra. "If I may," she said, placing a gossamer-like hand over the medical console. With a series of rapid movements, she adjusted the energy output of the harmonic resonator. The artifact pulsed, sending waves of harmonious energy through Andorra's unstable form. For a moment, the hybrid beings seemed to stabilize, their features settling into a perfect blend of human and Kytion. But the reprieve was short-lived. Andorra's body suddenly convulsed, new and unfamiliar genetic sequences emerging to resist the stabilization attempt. "Impossible," Dr. Zen muttered, her eyes wide as she studied the readouts. "Their DNA is evolving in real time, creating entirely new genetic structures." Ambassador Zyra's team sprang into action, their ethereal forms moving with practiced precision as they assisted the GPF medical staff. Together, they began to adapt their approach, pushing the boundaries of known science with each passing second. Outside the medical bay, tensions mounted as various factions argued over Andorra's fate. Kytion officials demanded assurances of Andorra's autonomy, while GPF leadership stressed the potential security implications of such a unique being. Commander Vex found herself mediating between the groups, her diplomatic skills stretched to their limits. Even the Zargak's representatives, still under guard, expressed interest in the procedure's outcome, seeing potential applications for their own genetic research. As the debate raged on, alarms blared throughout the ship. Vex rushed to the bridge, her heart pounding as she took in the sight on the main view screen. A massive energy surge rippled through space, followed by the appearance of enormous, alien vessels that dwarfed even the GPF ship. A booming voice echoed through every communication channel. "We are the progenitors. The experiment has reached its conclusion. Prepare for evaluation." Vex's mind reeled at the implications. An experiment had all of this: the Zargak's invasion, Andorra's creation, even the arrival of the synergists, been orchestrated by these mysterious progenitors? In the medical bay, Andorra's consciousness began to resurface, fluctuating wildly between their unified hybrid state and the separate identities of Andrew and Cora. As the beings struggled to find balance, fragmented memories flashed through their mind, glimpses of vast, incomprehensible beings and whispers of a grand, cosmic design. Dr. LYX's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, we're at a critical juncture. The next few minutes will determine whether we can stabilize Andorra's form." Vex found herself torn between the immediate crisis in the medical bay and the looming threat of the progenitor ships. As she weighed her options, she realized that the decisions made in the next few moments could reshape the very fabric of galactic civilization. With a deep breath, Commander Vex steeled herself for what was to come. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test the limits of science, diplomacy, and the newfound bonds between diverse species. And at the center of it all lay Andorra, their very existence hanging in the balance as the galaxy stood on the brink of a new era. Commander Vex's eyes darted between the medical bay's urgency and the looming threat of the progenitor ships. In a split-second decision, she tapped her communicator. "Bridge, open a channel to the progenitor vessels. Dr. LYX, continue the stabilization procedure. We'll handle both situations simultaneously." As the communication link crackled to life, Vex's steady voice filled the bridge. "This is Commander Alara Vex of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. We request information about your presence and intentions." A deep, resonant voice responded, echoing through the ship's speakers. "Commander Vex, I am Zephyr of the Progenitors. We have come to observe the conclusion of our grand experiment." While Vex engaged in this tense dialogue, the medical bay buzzed with frantic activity. Dr. LYX's fingers flew over the control panel, adjusting the harmonic resonator's output. The ancient Kytion artifact hummed with increasing intensity, its crystalline surface pulsing with an otherworldly light. Ambassador Zyra of the Synergists moved with fluid grace, her translucent form shimmering as she assisted the medical team. "The hybrid's genetic structure is stabilizing," she announced, her melodious voice tinged with excitement. Andorra's form began to solidify, the chaotic blur of human and Kytion features settling into a harmonious blend. However, their consciousness continued to fluctuate wildly, fragments of Andrew's and Cora's memories flashing across their shared mind. On the bridge, a holographic projection materialized, revealing Zephyr's ethereal form. The progenitor towered over the assembled crew, its body seeming to shimmer with stars and cosmic energy. "For millennia, we have guided the development of species across the galaxy," Zephyr explained, its voice resonating with ancient wisdom. "The recent conflicts, including the Zargak's invasion, were part of our experiment to test interspecies cooperation and genetic compatibility." Vex's eyes narrowed. "You mean to say you orchestrated this entire war?" Zephyr's form rippled, an approximation of a nod. The conflict was a crucible, designed to forge new alliances and push the boundaries of your collective potential. But the creation of Andorra was an unexpected and highly significant outcome. As if on cue, alarms blared from the medical bay. Dr. LYX's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, we've achieved physical stability, but Andorra's consciousness is still in flux." Vex turned to Zephyr, her expression a mix of defiance and desperation. "Your experiment has put countless lives at risk. Now, we have a being fighting for their very existence. Will you help us stabilize Andorra, or simply observe?" Zephyr paused, its form shimmering with what might have been curiosity. "We wish to study this unique hybrid. Allow us to take Andorra for further examination." "Absolutely not," Vex retorted, her voice sharp. "Andorra is under our protection. However, you're welcome to observe our stabilization efforts." After a moment's consideration, Zephyr nodded. In a blink, the progenitor's holographic form disappeared from the bridge, reappearing instantly in the medical bay. Dr. LYX jumped at the sudden appearance, but quickly refocused on her work. She manipulated the harmonic resonator's controls, fine-tuning its frequency to match Andorra's unique genetic signature. "There," she exclaimed as the readout stabilized. "We've created a supporting energy field. It should help Andorra's consciousness coalesce." The hybrid being's eyes fluttered open, their gaze immediately locking onto Zephyr. To everyone's shock, Andorra spoke in a language none of them recognized, except the progenitor. Zephyr's form pulsed with surprise. "Impossible," it murmured. "The hybrid has accessed knowledge we embedded in human and Kytion genetic code eons ago." Andorra sat up, their movements fluid and assured. When they spoke again, it was in galactic standard. "I understand now. The experiment, the conflict, the joining. It was all leading to this moment." Commander Vex stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Andorra, how do you feel? Are you? You?" The hybrid being smiled, an expression that seamlessly blended Andrew's warmth and Cora's feline grace. "I am Andorra, but I am also Andrew and Cora. We are one, yet we are many, and we have much to share." Zephyr's form shimmered with what might have been excitement. "This changes everything. The level of integration, the accessing of ancient knowledge. It's beyond even our predictions." The progenitor turned to Commander Vex. "We propose a collaborative effort. Instead of taking Andorra, we offer to share our advanced technology and knowledge. Together, we can explore the implications of this extraordinary being's existence and work towards stabilizing galactic relations." Vex's mind raced, recognizing the potential for a monumental shift in intergalactic politics. "We're open to collaboration, but we have conditions. Andorra's rights and freedoms must be protected, and we need guarantees that you won't interfere in our affairs without consent." As negotiations began in earnest, Andorra stood up, their body glowing with a soft, pulsating light. They raised their hands, and to everyone's amazement, streams of energy flowed between their fingertips, forming complex, shifting patterns in the air. "I can sense the energy fields around us," Andorra explained, their voice a harmonious blend of tones. "I can manipulate them, communicate through them. There's so much potential here, not just for me, but for all of us." Dean Zaxthor, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. "The academic exchange program that brought Andrew here, was that part of your experiment too?" he asked Zephyr. The progenitor nodded. "A small but crucial element in the grand design." As Zaxthor began taking notes for what would undoubtedly be a historic report, Commander Vex turned her attention to the lingering Zargak situation. "We need to address the root causes of this conflict," she mused. "Perhaps it's time for a diplomatic summit." Andorra's eyes lit up. "I could help mediate. My unique perspective might bridge the gaps between species." Vex nodded, a plan forming in her mind. She tapped her communicator, issuing orders for a diplomatic shuttle to be prepared. As the various representatives began to assemble, a palpable sense of anticipation filled the air. They were on the cusp of a new era in galactic relations, with challenges and opportunities beyond anything they had previously imagined. As they boarded the shuttle bound for a neutral space station, Vex couldn't help but feel both exhilarated and apprehensive. The fate of multiple species now rested on the success of their negotiations. And looming over it all was the watchful presence of the progenitors, their true motive still shrouded in mystery. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, propelling them towards an uncertain but potentially revolutionary future. As the stars streaked by outside the viewport, Andorra stood at the center of it all, a living bridge between worlds, ready to help shape the destiny of the galaxy. As the stars streaked by outside the viewport, Andorra stood at the center of it all, a living bridge between worlds, ready to help shape the destiny of the assembled species. The diplomatic shuttle hummed with nervous energy as it carried its diverse passengers towards the neutral space station. Commander Vex ran through her mental checklist, preparing for the complex negotiations ahead. Andorra's gaze was fixed on the stars, their unique physiology allowing them to perceive the subtle energy currents flowing through space. Suddenly, the shuttle lurched violently. Alarms blared as the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, we're experiencing unexpected power fluctuations. Controls are becoming unresponsive." Vex rushed to the cockpit, her face grim as she took in the rapidly changing instrument readings. "What's our status?" The pilot's hands flew over the controls. "We're veering off course, being pulled towards an uncharted sector. There's something out there." Through the viewport, a swirling violet atmosphere came into view, surrounding a previously undetected planet. The shuttle shuddered as it was inexorably drawn towards the mysterious world. "All hands, brace for emergency landing." Vex's voice rang out, steely calm despite the crisis. The shuttle plummeted through the thick atmosphere, its hull groaning under the strain. With a bone-jarring impact, it slammed into the planet's surface, skidding to a halt in a field of luminescent vegetation. As the dust settled, Vex took charge. "Status report. Is everyone all right?" A chorus of affirmatives sounded as the passengers checked themselves and each other for injuries. Andorra was the first to the hatch, their heightened senses already analyzing their surroundings. "The air is breathable," they announced, stepping out onto the alien soil. The assembled diplomats and crew members followed, emerging into a landscape that defied expectation. Towering plants pulsed with internal light, casting an eerie glow over the crash site. Strange, multi-limbed creatures scurried away from the newcomers, disappearing into the underbrush. Vex quickly organized the group. "We need to establish a secure perimeter and assess our situation. Dr. Zen, please check for injuries. Zilvan, see if you can get our communications back online." As the others set to work, Andorra closed their eyes, extending their unique sensory abilities. "Commander, there's something odd about this place. The energy patterns are like nothing I've ever encountered." Vex nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Can you determine if there are any immediate threats?" Andorra's brow furrowed in concentration. "No immediate dangers, but there's a structure of some kind nearby. It's emanating a familiar energy signature." With the shuttle damage and communications down, the group had little choice but to investigate. They set off through the bioluminescent forest, Andorra leading the way with their enhanced senses. After an hour of trekking, they emerged into a clearing dominated by an immense structure. Its architecture was a blend of organic and technological elements, with spiraling towers that seemed to grow from the very bedrock. Dean Zaxthor gasped. "Incredible! These designs, they bear a striking resemblance to the harmonic resonator." As the group approached, The ground beneath their feet began to pulse with light. Holographic figures shimmered into existence, their forms translucent and ethereal. One of the figures stepped forward, its voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. "Welcome, travelers. We are the custodians of the Nexus. We have waited eons for one who bears the key." All eyes turned to Andorra as the holographic being gestured towards them. "You, Hybrid One, carry within you the genetic key we have long awaited. The Nexus calls to you." Vex stepped protectively in front of Andorra. "What exactly is this Nexus? And what do you want with Andorra?" The custodian's form rippled, its voice taking on a tone of reverence. "The Nexus is the culmination of progenitor wisdom, a vast biological computer designed to preserve the genetic legacy of countless species. It has lain dormant, waiting for one with the perfect fusion of genetic codes to awaken it." Andorra's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "That's why I can sense the energy patterns here. It's calling to the progenitor DNA within me." The holographic custodian nodded. "Indeed, you alone have the power to reactivate the Nexus, to access the wealth of genetic knowledge stored within. But be warned, such power comes with great responsibility." As if triggered by these words, the ruins around them hummed to life. Energy barriers sprang up, cutting off their escape routes. "You cannot leave until a choice is made," the custodian intoned. "The fate of the Nexus, and potentially the galaxy, rests in your hands." The assembled diplomats erupted into a cacophony of arguments and demands. The Zargax representative pushed forward, his eyes gleaming with ambition. "We must activate it immediately. Think of the advancements we could make." Others voiced their concerns, fears of such power being misused echoing through the ancient chamber. Andorra stood silently, the weight of the decision heavy on their shoulders. Vex approached, her voice low. "Whatever you decide, we'll support you. But we need more information before we act." Nodding in agreement, Andorra turned to the custodian. "We need time to understand what we're dealing with. Can you show us more of this facility?" The holographic being flickered, then gestured towards a previously hidden doorway. "Enter and learn. But remember, time is not infinite. A decision must be made." As the group prepared to delve deeper into the mysterious Nexus, the bioluminescent flora around them pulsed with increasing intensity. The alien planet seemed to hold its breath, awaiting a choice that could reshape the course of galactic history. As the group prepared to delve deeper into the mysterious Nexus, the bioluminescent flora around them pulsed with increasing intensity. The alien planet seemed to hold its breath, awaiting a choice that could reshape the course of galactic civilization. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the ancient ruins. The ground beneath their feet buckled and cracked, sending shockwaves through the structure. Commander Vex's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. "Everyone, brace yourselves," she shouted, but her warning came too late. The floor gave way with a thunderous crack, plunging Andorra, Vex, and several other representatives into the depths below. They tumbled through darkness, surrounded by the sound of crumbling stone and panicked shouts. Andorra's hybrid physiology allowed them to twist in midair, softening their landing as they hit the ground of a dimly lit cavern. The impact knocked the wind out of them, and for a moment they lay still, trying to orient themselves in the gloom. As their eyes adjusted, Andorra noticed something peculiar about the cavern walls. Faint lines of bioluminescence traced intricate patterns across the rocky surface, eerily similar to the markings on their own skin. Curiosity overrode caution, and Andorra reached out to touch one of the glowing lines. The moment their fingers made contact, the cavern sprang to life. Light surged through the patterns, illuminating the space in a soft, ethereal glow. The walls seemed to ripple and shift, revealing a vast array of organic interfaces and pulsating conduits. Andorra gasped as they realized the true nature of their surroundings. It's a biological interface, connected directly to the nexus. Meanwhile, in another section of the underground complex, Commander Vex pushed herself to her feet, wincing at the ache in her ribs. She quickly took stock of her surroundings and the others who had fallen with her. "Sound off," she ordered. "Who's here, and is anyone injured?" As her team responded, Vex's gaze fell upon a series of translucent pods lining the walls of the chamber. Each pod contained a different being, some familiar species, others completely alien to her eyes. The pods hummed with a faint energy, preserving their occupants in suspended animation. "These must be part of the genetic preservation system," muttered Zilvan, the Zargax scientist who had landed near Vex. "But why keep them here, hidden away?" Before Vex could respond, a familiar voice called out from the shadows. "Commander, over here." Dr. Zara LYX emerged from a nearby tunnel, her normally pristine uniform now covered in dirt and alien plant matter. The xenobiologist's eyes gleamed with excitement despite her disheveled appearance. "Dr. LYX, we thought you were lost during the landing," Vex exclaimed. LYX shook her head, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Not lost, Commander. I've been studying this place. And what I've discovered, it's beyond anything we could have imagined." As LYX shared her findings with the group, Andorra stood alone in the biological interface chamber, their body beginning to resonate with the Nexus system. The hybrid skin took on a more pronounced glow, matching the pulsating rhythms of the surrounding technology. Suddenly, Andorra's vision blurred. The cavern around them dissolved, replaced by a kaleidoscope of alien worlds and species. They saw bustling cities on gas giants, aquatic civilizations in subterranean oceans, and beings of pure energy dancing among the stars. Each vision was accompanied by a flood of knowledge and emotion, overwhelming in its intensity. As quickly as it began, the torrent of information ceased. Andorra found themselves back in the chamber, gasping for breath. They now understood the true scope of the Nexus, a repository not just of genetic information, but of the collected wisdom and experiences of countless civilizations. The chamber systems, awakened by Andorra's presence, hummed to life. Holographic projections materialized around them, displaying incomprehensible streams of data and schematics. At the center of it all, a pulsing orb of energy coalesced, presenting Andorra with two distinct pathways. One path led to full reactivation of the Nexus, potentially reshaping the genetic landscape of the galaxy. The other offered the role of guardian, preserving the knowledge but limiting its accessibility. The weight of the decision pressed down on Andorra, their human and Kytion aspects warring within them. As Andorra grappled with their choice, Commander Vex led her team through the labyrinthine complex, guided by Dr. LYX's insights. They encountered a series of security measures left behind by the progenitors, energy barriers, logic puzzles, and biometric scanners that tested the limits of their diverse skills and knowledge. "These aren't just obstacles," LYX explained as they worked to bypass a particularly complex force field. "They're tests. The progenitors wanted to ensure that only those worthy could access the heart of the Nexus." After what felt like hours of navigation and problem-solving, the team finally reached a vast control room. Holographic displays flickered to life as they entered, presenting a dizzying array of information about the planet-wide system. Vex's eyes widened as she took in the scope of what they were seeing. It's not just genetic data. This is the sum total of knowledge from entire civilizations. Technologies, philosophies, histories, all preserved here. The implications of this revelation sent a shockwave through the group. The power to reshape not just the biological, but the cultural landscape of the galaxy now lay within their reach. As Vex and her team raced to reach Andorra, the hybrid being stood at the precipice of their decision. Their body had continued to change, adapting to the alien environment and integrating more closely with the Nexus. Bioluminescent patterns danced across their skin, and they found they could interface directly with the planet's systems through mere touch. The human part of Andorra, born from Andrew's memories, urged caution. The potential for misuse of such power was enormous, and the consequences could be catastrophic. But the Kaition side, influenced by Cora's adventurous spirit, saw the opportunity for unprecedented growth and understanding between species. Energy surged through the complex as Andorra wrestled with their decision. The planet itself seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the choice that would shape the future of countless worlds. Just as Andorra reached out to make their final choice, the chamber door burst open. Commander Vex and her team rushed in, their eyes wide with awe at the scene before them. "Andorra, wait," Vex called out, her voice cutting through the hum of energy. "There's something you need to know before you decide." Andorra turned, their hand hovering inches from the interface, as the destiny of the universe hung in the balance. Balance. Andorra's hand made contact with the interface, and a surge of energy coursed through their hybrid body. Their eyes widened, then rolled back as they collapsed to the ground. "Andorra!" Vex shouted, rushing forward to catch them. For a moment, the chamber fell silent, save for the low hum of the Nexus. Then Andorra's eyes snapped open, their irises now swirling with bioluminescent patterns that matched the walls around them. I can see it all," Andorra whispered, their voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "The web of life, spanning across the galaxy. It's beautiful." As Andorra stood, their skin began to shift and change, intricate patterns forming and reforming across their body. The hybrid's consciousness expanded, connecting with the vast repository of information stored within the Nexus. "Commander," Andorra said, turning to Vex, "I understand now. The Nexus isn't meant to be controlled by any one being or species. It's a shared legacy, meant to bring balance to the galaxy." With newfound purpose, Andorra approached the central interface once more. Their hands danced across the controls, initiating a complex sequence of commands. "What are you doing?" Dr. LYX asked, her scientific curiosity piqued. "Creating a system of balanced access," Andorra replied, their fingers moving within human speed. "The knowledge within the Nexus will be released gradually to all species represented here, but with safeguards to prevent misuse." As Andorra worked, the chamber around them began to change. Walls shifted and reconfigured, revealing hidden passageways and chambers. The stasis pods lining the walls hummed to life, their occupants stirring from millennia of suspended animation. Commander Vex quickly took charge of the situation. "Dr. LYX, start cataloging these new life forms. Everyone else, secure the area and prepare for potential evacuations." As the team scrambled to manage the rapidly evolving situation, Andorra continued their work. Their connection to the Nexus deepened, allowing them to perceive the intricate balance of life throughout the galaxy. On the surface, Dean Zaxthor and the other diplomats felt the ground beneath them tremble. The bioluminescent flora pulsed with increased intensity, and waves of energy radiated from the planet's core. "What's happening down there?" Zaxthor muttered, activating his comm device. "This is Dean Zaxthor to all ships in orbit. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the planet's surface. Stand by for further instructions." Back in the underground complex, Dr. LYX worked feverishly to document the awakening species. "Commander," she called out, her voice filled with awe, "some of these beings, they're unlike anything we've ever encountered. The genetic diversity here is staggering." As the situation in the Nexus stabilized, Andorra turned to address the group. "The process has begun. The Nexus will gradually release its knowledge to all of us, but it will take time for the information to be fully integrated and understood." Suddenly, a new voice crackled over the comm system. "This is Captain Jax Riven of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. We've detected massive energy readings from your location. What's your status, Commander Vex?" Vex quickly brought the captain up to speed on the situation. We need a secure perimeter established around the Nexus site immediately, Captain, and prepare for an influx of scientists and diplomats. Things are about to get very interesting here. As Riven acknowledged the order, Andora's body continued to change. The patterns on their skin shifted and flowed, reflecting the vast array of genetic information now coursing through their consciousness. Dr. LYX approached Andora, her eyes wide with fascination. Your physiological changes are remarkable. With your permission, I'd like to study these adaptations. They could provide invaluable insights into interspecies genetic compatibility. Before Andora could respond, a Zargax representative stepped forward. We wish to offer our assistance, he said, his voice tinged with hesitation. Our biotechnology could aid in the revival and care of these awakening species. Commander Vex eyed the Zargax warily, then nodded. Very well, but you'll work under close supervision. As the complex buzzed with activity, Andora interfaced once more with the Nexus systems. Information flowed through their mind, advanced technologies, scientific breakthroughs, and historical records of long-lost civilizations. But amidst the flood of knowledge, Andora stumbled upon something troubling. Hidden deep within the Nexus's records were files detailing the progenitors' past experiments, some of which bordered on the unethical. Andora's expression grew grave as they processed this new information. The true purpose behind the Nexus's creation was more complex and potentially more dangerous than they had initially believed. As ships from across the galaxy began to arrive in orbit, drawn by the promise of ancient knowledge, Andora realized that their work had only just begun. The challenge of responsibly managing the Nexus's power while navigating the competing interests of various species loomed large. Commander Vex approached Andora, noting their troubled expression. What is it? What have you found? Andora turned to the commander, their eyes swirling with conflicting emotions. The Nexus. It's not just a repository of knowledge. It's a key to unimaginable power. And we need to decide how to use it. We need to decide how to use it wisely. Andora's eyes flickered with concern as they shared their discovery. Before Commander Vex could respond, a sharp beep from her communicator interrupted their conversation. She tapped the device, her brow furrowing as she listened to the incoming message. Commander, this is Captain Jax Riven. We've detected an unidentified vessel entering orbit. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Vex's posture stiffened. Hostile? Negative. They're hailing us now. The chamber fell silent as Vex activated the holographic display. A flickering image materialized, revealing a striking humanoid figure with iridescent skin and large, luminous eyes. Greetings, inhabitants of the Nexus planet. I am Ambassador Lyra of the Synergist Collective. We come in peace and request permission to land. Vex exchanged a glance with Andora before responding. This is Commander Vex. What is your purpose here, Ambassador? Lyra's gaze fixed on Andora, her eyes widening with obvious interest. We've been monitoring the situation on your planet, particularly the unique individual in your company. We believe they hold the key to advancing interspecies compatibility. Andora felt a strange flutter in their chest as Lyra's eyes met theirs. The hybrid skin rippled with bioluminescent patterns, responding to the surge of emotions. Vex's voice cut through Andora's momentary distraction. Permission granted, Ambassador. But we'll need to implement strict security protocols. As preparations for the Synergist's arrival began, Dr. LYX approached Vex and Andora, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. Commander, we have a situation with the newly awakened species. The Zephyrians. They're telepaths, and their abilities are overwhelming our unprepared minds. Vex pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling the weight of multiple crises bearing down on her. Recommendations, Doctor? We need to develop psionic shielding, and fast. LYX replied, her fingers flying over her datapad. I've got my team working on it, but we could use all the help we can get. As if on cue, the Zargax representative stepped forward. We may be of assistance, he offered, his voice tentative but eager. Our species has experience with telepathic races. We possess technology that could help contain the situation. Vex nodded, her initial wariness giving way to cautious appreciation. Very well. Work with Dr. LYX's team, but understand you'll be under close supervision. As the complex buzzed with activity, Andorra found their attention drawn back to the holographic image of Lyra. There was something captivating about the Synergist ambassador, a pull that resonated with both their human and Kytion aspects. The sound of ships entering the atmosphere signaled the Synergist's arrival. Andorra, along with Vex and a security detail, made their way to the designated landing zone. As the sleek, otherworldly craft touched down, Andorra felt a mix of anticipation and unease. The ship's hatch opened with a soft hiss, and Ambassador Lyra emerged, her iridescent skin shimmering in the planet's bioluminescent glow. She approached Andorra with a grace that seemed almost ethereal. Greetings, Andorra, Lyra said, her voice melodious and warm. I've been looking forward to meeting you. As their eyes met, Andorra felt a jolt of connection, unlike anything they had experienced before. The hybrid skin pulsed with new patterns, responding to Lyra's presence. Welcome to the Nexus, Ambassador, Andorra replied, their voice carrying a hint of breathlessness. Lyra smiled, her luminous eyes never leaving Andorra's face. I believe we have much to discuss. Your unique physiology, it's the key to a new era of understanding between species. As Lyra and Andorra began to converse, their connection was palpable. Vex watched the interaction with a mixture of curiosity and concern, making a mental note to keep a close eye on the developing situation. Meanwhile, in the complex below, Dr. LYX and the Zargax representatives worked feverishly to contain the telepathic outbursts of the Zephyrians. The air crackled with psychic energy as they raced to implement psionic shielding. Andorra, still captivated by Lyra's presence, felt a twinge of guilt as memories of Korra surfaced in their merged consciousness. The conflicting emotions added another layer of complexity to their already intricate existence. As the day progressed, ships from various species began to enter the system, drawn by news of the Nexus's awakening. The once quiet planet was quickly becoming a hub of interstellar activity, with Captain Jack's Riven security team struggling to maintain order. Amidst the growing chaos, Andorra found themselves torn between their duties to the Nexus and their growing fascination with Lyra and the Synergists. The weight of responsibility pressed down on them, as the future of interspecies relations seemed to rest on their shoulders. As night fell on the Nexus planet, Andorra stood at the entrance of the complex, watching the streams of ships entering orbit. Lyra approached, her presence sending a ripple of energy through Andorra's being. There's something I need to show you, Lyra said, her voice low and enticing. Information about an ancient progenitor outpost. It could change everything. Andorra hesitated, feeling the pull of Lyra's offer and the weight of their responsibilities. As they considered their response, the hybrid knew that their decision would set in motion events that would reshape not only their own destiny, but potentially the future of the entire galaxy. Andorra's gaze met Lyra's, and they felt a surge of excitement and apprehension. Show me, Andorra said, their voice barely above a whisper. Lyra nodded and led Andorra to a secluded area of the complex. She activated a holographic display, revealing a star map with a pulsing marker. This is a location of the progenitor outpost, Lyra explained, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. Our long-range scans indicate it contains technology far beyond our current understanding. If we can access it, we could accelerate interspecies compatibility by centuries. Andorra studied the map, their hybrid mind processing the implications at lightning speed. The potential benefits were immense, but so were the risks. "We need to inform Commander Vex," Andorra said, their skin rippling with conflicting emotions. Lyra agreed, and together they approached the commander, who was overseeing the integration of the newly awakened species. Vex listened intently as Andorra and Lyra outlined their proposal for an expedition to the progenitor outpost. Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed a mix of curiosity and concern. "This is a significant undertaking," Vex said, her voice measured. "The potential rewards are substantial, but so are the dangers. We can't risk destabilizing the fragile balance we've achieved here." After hours of intense discussion and debate, Vex made her decision. "I'll authorize the mission," she said, "but on one condition. Captain Jax Riven and a GPF security detail will accompany you to ensure everyone's safety and monitor the synergist activities." Andorra nodded, understanding the need for caution. As preparations for the expedition began, Dean Zaxtor approached Andorra with a small, crystalline object in his hand. "This data crystal contains all the information we've gathered about the Nexus and the awakened species," Zaxtor explained, his voice solemn. "Your mission could reshape the future of interspecies relations. Use this knowledge wisely." Andorra accepted the crystal, feeling its weight both physically and metaphorically. They tucked it securely into a pocket of their envirosuit, acutely aware of the responsibility they now carried. The expedition team boarded the Stellar Harmony, a sleek vessel provided by the Synergists. Its hull gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, hinting at the advanced technology within. As the ship prepared for departure, Andorra stood at a viewport, watching the Nexus planet grow smaller. Captain Jax Riven approached, his posture rigid and his expression guarded. "I hope you understand why I'm here, Andorra," he said, his voice low. "This mission has implications beyond just scientific discovery." Andorra nodded, appreciating Riven's directness. "I understand, Captain. We're venturing into the unknown, and caution is warranted." As the Stellar Harmony left orbit, Andorra found themselves drawn to the ship's observation deck. The vast expanse of space stretched before them, dotted with countless stars. Lyra joined them, her presence both comforting and exhilarating. "What do you think we'll find?" Andorra asked, their eyes fixed on the distant stars. Lyra's iridescent skin shimmered as she considered the question. "Knowledge, certainly, but perhaps also answers about the nature of life itself and our place in the cosmos." Their conversations continued throughout the journey, touching on philosophy, science, and the potential future of interspecies cooperation. Andorra felt a growing connection with Lyra, their minds seeming to resonate on a level beyond mere words. This closeness didn't go unnoticed by the rest of the crew. Captain Riven, in particular, watched their interactions with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. His hand often strayed to his sidearm when Lyra was near, a gesture that didn't escape Andorra's notice. As they approached the star system containing the progenitor outpost, the ship's sensors came alive with activity. A small, barren planet orbited a dim red dwarf star, unremarkable save for an unusual energy signature emanating from its surface. "We've found it," Lyra breathed, her eyes wide with excitement. The Stellar Harmony entered orbit around the planet, and Andorra felt a faint resonance within their hybrid physiology. It was as if the planet itself was calling to them, confirming the presence of progenitor technology. The landing party assembled in the shuttle bay. Andorra, Lyra, Captain Riven, and 2 Synergist scientists. As they boarded the shuttle, Andorra couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something monumental. The descent to the planet's surface was turbulent, the shuttle buffeted by harsh winds. As they broke through the cloud cover, a desolate landscape of twisted rock formations and deep canyons spread out before them. They touched down near the source of the energy signature. As Andorra stepped out of the shuttle, their skin began to glow faintly, responding to trace elements in the atmosphere. The air was thin and cold, carrying the scent of ancient stone and metal. Using advanced scanning equipment, the team began to search for signs of the hidden outpost. Andorra, guided by an inexplicable intuition, led them towards a massive rock formation that loomed against the horizon. As they approached, Andorra's hybrid senses tingled. They ran their hand along the rough surface of the rock, feeling for any anomalies. Suddenly, their fingers brushed against a hidden panel, smooth and cool to the touch. With a soft hum, the panel came to life, responding to Andorra's unique physiology. A seam appeared in the rock face, widening into a doorway that revealed a dark corridor leading into the heart of the formation. Captain Riven raised his weapon, peering into the shadows. "Stay alert," he warned. "We don't know what defenses this place might have." Andorra nodded, their heart racing with a mixture of fear and excitement. As they stepped into the corridor, ancient systems began to power up, responding to their presence. Holographic displays flickered to life along the walls, showing schematics of hybrid species and complex genetic algorithms. Lyra gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is incredible," she breathed, her fingers flying over her data pad as she began to record and analyze the information. As they ventured deeper into the complex, the air grew thick with the weight of ancient secrets. Andorra could feel the pulse of progenitor technology all around them, resonating with their hybrid physiology in ways they couldn't fully comprehend. They came to a vast chamber, dimly lit by bioluminescent panels. In the center stood a massive device, its purpose unclear, but its importance undeniable. Andorra approached it, drawn by an irresistible urge. As their hand touched the control interface, the device hummed to life. A shimmering energy field enveloped Andorra, lifting them off the ground. "Andorra!" Captain Riven shouted, rushing forward with his weapon raised. Lyra grabbed his arm, holding him back. "Wait! Their unique physiology makes them the only one who can safely interface with this technology. We have to let this play out." Inside the energy field, Andorra's body began to change. Their skin rippled with new patterns, their muscles shifting and realigning. They could feel their very DNA being rewritten, refined, enhanced. When the process finally ended, Andorra dropped to the floor, gasping. They felt different, stronger, more aware. Their senses were sharper, and they could feel the technology around them as if it were an extension of their own body. But before they could fully process these changes, a piercing alarm cut through the air. Red lights flashed along the walls, and the ground beneath them trembled. "We've triggered some kind of security system," one of the Synergist scientists called out, their voice tight with fear. The chamber door slammed shut, trapping them inside. From hidden compartments in the walls, robotic guardians emerged, their ancient forms crackling with energy as they advanced on the intruders. Captain Riven sprang into action, his training taking over. "Defensive positions," he shouted, unleashing a barrage of weapons fire at the nearest guardian. Andorra stood, marveling at their newfound strength and agility. They reached out with their mind, sensing the complex web of technology around them. With a thought, they disrupted the control systems of two approaching guardians, causing them to collapse in a shower of sparks. As the battle raged, Lyra pulled a small, crystalline device from her pocket. "This might be our only chance," she said, her voice urgent. "It's progenitor technology we've been studying. It could override the security systems, but it requires a direct neural interface." Andorra looked at the device, then at the chaos around them. They knew the risks, but they also knew they were the only one who could attempt the interface safely. "I'll do it," Andorra said, reaching for the crystal. As their fingers closed around the device, Andorra's mind plunged into a vast network of information. They navigated through layers of ancient security protocols, racing against time to deactivate the defenses and secure their escape. In the physical world, the battle continued to rage. Captain Riven and the others fought desperately against the seemingly endless waves of robotic guardians. Lyra worked feverishly to analyze the progenitor data, searching for any information that could aid their survival. Andorra pushed deeper into the outpost systems, uncovering fragments of information about its true purpose and its connection to a larger galactic experiment. The knowledge was overwhelming, threatening to drown their consciousness in a sea of data. With a final, Herculean effort, Andorra located the master control for the security systems. As they reached for it, a failsafe triggered, sending a surge of energy through their neural connection. Andorra screamed, their body convulsing as they fought to maintain the link. The fate of the expedition hung in the balance as Andorra battled against the outpost's ancient defenses. The valuable progenitor technology, the future of interspecies relations, and their very lives all depended on Andorra's ability to overcome this final obstacle. Challenge. With a final surge of mental effort, Andorra pushed through the failsafe, their enhanced physiology allowing them to withstand the energy surge. The security systems flickered and died, plunging the chamber into sudden silence. The robotic guardians froze mid-attack, their glowing eyes dimming as they collapsed to the ground. Captain Riven lowered his weapon, breathing heavily, while Lyra rushed to Andorra's side. "Are you all right?" she asked, her iridescent skin pulsing with concern. Andorra nodded, their body tingling with residual energy. "I'm fine. Better than fine. Actually, I feel different, stronger." As the immediate danger subsided, the team turned their attention to the wealth of information now at their fingertips. Lyra and her synergist colleagues quickly set up their equipment, interfacing with the outpost systems to begin downloading the vast database. "This is incredible," Lyra breathed, her eyes wide as she scrolled through the data. "The genetic manipulation techniques here are light years beyond anything we've ever seen. This could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies compatibility." While the scientists worked, Andorra felt drawn to explore deeper into the outpost. Captain Riven, ever vigilant, insisted on accompanying them. As they ventured down a dimly lit corridor, Andorra's enhanced senses picked up a faint energy signature. "There's something here," they murmured, placing their hand against a seemingly blank wall. To their surprise, the wall shimmered and dissolved, revealing a hidden chamber. The room was filled with stasis pods, each containing a perfectly preserved specimen of various hybrid species. Andorra moved among them, marveling at the diversity of forms the progenitors had created. One pod, in particular, caught their attention. Unlike the others, it emitted a soft, pulsing light. Andorra approached, drawn by an inexplicable urge. As their hand touched the smooth surface, the pod hummed to life. "Andorra, wait," Captain Riven started, but it was too late. The pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cryogenic mist. As it cleared, Andorra gasped. Inside lay a stunningly beautiful hybrid being, its features a mesmerizing blend of multiple species. The being's eyes fluttered open, focusing on Andorra with startling intensity. Andorra felt a name form in their mind: Zara. "We need to follow quarantine protocols," Riven insisted, reaching for his communicator. "We don't know anything about this being or why it was in stasis." But Andorra couldn't look away from Zara. They felt a connection, a pull that defied explanation. "She's been preserved for a reason," Andorra said. "She might hold the key to understanding the progenitor's ultimate goals." Before Riven could protest further, Andorra reached out and took Zara's hand. The moment their skin touched, a jolt of energy passed between them. Andorra's mind expanded, connecting with Zara's in a rush of sensation and memory. Ancient knowledge flooded Andorra's consciousness. They saw the progenitor's grand vision, a new species capable of uniting the diverse races of the galaxy. Zara was the pinnacle of their research, designed to be the progenitor of this unified species. As their minds merged, Andorra and Zara's bodies began to change. Andorra's skin shimmered with new patterns, while Zara's form shifted subtly, incorporating elements of Andora's human-Cytian hybrid structure. "What's happening to them?" Riven demanded, his hand hovering over his weapon. Lyra, who had followed the energy spike to the hidden chamber, stepped forward in awe. "It's a spontaneous genetic exchange," she explained, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "Their physiologies are adapting to each other, creating something entirely new." The genetic melding intensified, causing visible discomfort to both Andora and Zara. Lyra's eyes darted between them and the advanced equipment lining the walls of the stasis chamber. "We might be able to use this technology to stabilize and enhance the process," she suggested, already moving towards a control panel. "This could be the breakthrough we've been searching for in interspecies compatibility." "Absolutely not," Riven barked, blocking her path. "We have no idea what consequences this could have. It's too risky." As Lyra and Riven argued, Andora and Zara remained locked in their mental and physical embrace, oblivious to the debate raging around them. Their minds continued to meld, sharing not just genetic information but emotions, memories, and a deep, spiritual connection that transcended physical attraction. The outpost systems, sensing the unique event unfolding, began to power up additional equipment. Holographic displays flickered to life around the chamber, projecting images of potential hybrid species that could result from Andora and Zara's union. Lyra gasped, her fingers flying over her data pad as she tried to record every detail. These projections, they're showing beings of incredible adaptability. They could survive in any environment, interface with any technology. This could change everything. Riven's face darkened with concern and completely destabilize the current balance of power among known species. "We need to shut this down now." Before anyone could act, the genetic melding between Andora and Zara reached a critical point. The outpost systems initiated a dormant protocol, enveloping the pair in shimmering energy fields. Their forms began to blur, individual bodies becoming indistinct as they moved towards a new, unified state of being. Alarms blared throughout the complex, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Riven grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her towards the exit. "We need to evacuate immediately. This whole place could come down around us." Lyra resisted, her eyes fixed on the transforming figures of Andora and Zara. "We can't leave now. We're witnessing the birth of a new species, a new future for the galaxy." As the chamber shook violently, Riven made the difficult decision. "Emergency evacuation protocols now. We're leaving." The energy field surrounding Andora and Zara expanded, filling the chamber with pulsating light. The outpost system strained under the immense power being channeled, causing tremors to ripple through the entire complex. Lyra and her team scrambled to gather what data and artifacts they could, even as Riven herded them towards the exit. The fate of Andora and Zara hung in the balance, their individual identities blurring as they evolved into something entirely new and unprecedented. As the expedition team rushed to their shuttle, the ground beneath the outpost began to crack and split. The ancient structure, awakened after millennia of dormancy, seemed to be tearing itself apart in response to the monumental event occurring within its walls. With a final, reluctant glance back at the collapsing outpost, Riven sealed the shuttle doors. As they lifted off from the planet's surface, the enormity of what they had witnessed and what they were leaving behind deeply affected on each member of the team. The shuttle broke through the planet's atmosphere, racing towards the stellar harmony. Behind them, the progenitor outpost imploded in a blinding flash of light, taking with it the secrets of an ancient civilization and the uncertain fate of two beings on the cusp of unimaginable transformation. As the shuttle raced towards the stellar harmony, the blinding flash of the imploding outpost faded behind them. The team sat in stunned silence, processing the enormity of what they had witnessed and left behind. However, their moment of reflection was short-lived. Without warning, the shuttle's instruments flickered and died, plunging the vessel into darkness. A powerful energy wave, emanating from the planet's surface, washed over them. For a heart-stopping moment, they were in free fall. "Emergency power now," Captain Riven barked, his hands flying over the controls. The backup system sputtered to life, restoring minimal functionality to the shuttle. Lyra's eyes widened as she checked her data pad. That energy signature. It's coming from the outpost. It's still active. Riven's eyes sharp. Impossible. We saw it collapse. "The readings don't lie," Lyra insisted. "Something's happening down there. We have to go back." The captain hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, he nodded grimly and brought the shuttle around. As they approached the planet once more, they saw that the outpost had not been destroyed as they'd thought. Instead, it stood intact, surrounded by a shimmering energy field. They landed near the entrance, weapons at the ready. The massive doors, which had begun to close during their escape, now stood open. Riven led the way, his body tense with anticipation. The corridors were eerily silent as they made their way back to the central chamber. When they reached it, they froze in shock. The room was bathed in an otherworldly glow, emanating from two figures at its center. Andorra and Zara hovered above the ground, their bodies partially merged and surrounded by a pulsating energy field. Their faces contorted in pain as the genetic melding process continued, unabated by the outpost's momentary shutdown. "We need to stabilize them," Lyra said, rushing to a nearby control panel. Her fingers flew over the ancient controls, trying to make sense of the progenitor technology. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the complex. Riven's comm unit crackled to life, relaying an urgent message from the stellar harmony. Multiple ships entering the system, their energy signatures matched Zargak's vessels. Riven cursed under his breath. "How long?" "Minutes at most, Captain." The team exchanged worried glances. They were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Riven's mind raced, considering their limited options. "Lyra, focus on stabilizing Andorra and Zara. The rest of you with me. We need to activate the outpost defenses." As the team split up, Lyra worked feverishly to control the genetic manipulation process. Andorra and Zara's screams echoed through the chamber as their bodies fought against the unnatural fusion. In the outpost control center, Riven and the others grappled with the ancient systems. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing the approaching Zargak's fleet. The captain's hands moved with practiced efficiency, bringing the outpost shields online just as the first volley of enemy fire rained down. The entire structure shook with the impact. Riven gritted his teeth, diverting more power to the shields. "We can't hold out forever," he muttered. Back in the central chamber, Lyra had made a breakthrough. The genetic manipulation device hummed to life, enveloping Andorra and Zara in a swirling vortex of energy. Their partially fused form lifted higher off the ground as the process intensified. The pain seemed to increase tenfold. Andorra and Zara's screams reached a fever pitch, their bodies contorting as their very DNA was rewritten. Lyra watched in fascination and horror, her instruments recording every aspect of the unprecedented transformation. Outside, the situation grew dire. Zargak's landing craft touched down, disgorging waves of heavily armed troops. They advanced on the outpost, their weapons primed for destruction. Riven led a small team to defend the entrance, using a combination of their own weapons and the outpost's automated defenses. The air filled with the acrid smell of ozone and burned flesh as both sides exchanged fire. In orbit, more Zargak ships arrived, intensifying their bombardment. The outpost shields began to flicker under the relentless assault. Just when all seemed lost, a blinding flash of light erupted from the central chamber. The genetic manipulation process had reached its climax. The energy field surrounding Andorra and Zara expanded rapidly, interfacing with the outpost systems. Ancient machinery sprang to life throughout the complex. Hidden weapons platforms emerged, targeting the Zargak's forces with pinpoint accuracy. A massive energy pulse emanated from the outpost, disabling the enemy ships in orbit and scrambling their ground troops' equipment. As the light faded, a single figure descended to the chamber floor. Andorra and Zara had become one, their bodies and minds fully integrated into a new being. This entity, Andorra Zara, opened its eyes, taking in the chaotic scene around them. Without a word, Andorra Zara strode to the main control interface. Their hands moved with inhuman speed and precision, activating systems that had lain dormant for millennia. The outpost thrummed with newfound power, its defenses now an impenetrable barrier against the Zargak's assault. Riven and his team, battered but alive, regrouped in the central chamber. They stared in awe at Andorra Zara, unsure how to proceed. The hybrid being turned to face them, its eyes filled with ancient wisdom and newfound purpose. "The fusion is complete," Andorra Zara said, its voice a melodious blend of its former selves. "But our journey has only just begun." As the team gathered around Andorra Zara, eager for answers, the outpost's long-range sensors detected new ships entering the system. The galaxy, it seemed, had taken notice of the awakening progenitor technology. The consequences of their discovery were about to ripple across the stars, forever changing the course of interspecies relations. Relations forever. The central chamber hummed with newfound energy as Andorra Zara interfaced with the outpost systems. Captain Riven and his team watched in awe as holographic displays sprang to life, revealing a dizzying array of information about the surrounding star systems. Suddenly, an alert flashed across the main screen. Multiple ships were entering the system, their energy signatures unfamiliar to the outpost database. "We've got company," Riven announced, his voice tense. "Looks like our little light show attracted some attention." Lyra's fingers flew over her datapad, analyzing the incoming data. "They're not Zargaks," she confirmed. "The designs are diverse. I'm seeing at least 5 different species represented." Andorra Zara turned to face the team, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "We must prepare for their arrival," they said, their voice a mesmerizing blend of Andorra and Zara's individual tones. "This outpost holds secrets that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. We cannot allow it to fall into the wrong hands." As if in response to their words, the outpost communication system crackled to life. A familiar voice filled the chamber. "Stellar harmony to ground team. Come in, ground team." Riven activated his comm unit. "This is Captain Riven. Go ahead, Commander Vex." Commander Alara Vex's holographic image appeared before them, her expression grave. "Captain, we've got a situation developing. News of the progenitor outpost activation has spread like wildfire across known space. Every major power in the sector is scrambling to get a piece of the action. We're looking at potential diplomatic incidents, maybe even armed conflict if things escalate." Riven's heart made. "Understood, Commander. What are our orders?" "Hold your position and secure the outpost," Vex replied. "We're sending reinforcements, but they won't arrive for at least 6 hours. In the meantime, you're authorized to use any means necessary to protect that facility and its technology." As the communication ended, Riven turned to his team. "You heard the commander. We need to fortify our defenses. Lyra, I want you and your team working on integrating our tech with the outpost systems. Focus on shields and weapons. We need to be ready for anything." Lyra nodded, already moving towards a nearby console. "On it, Captain." Riven turned to Andorra Zara, who stood silently observing the flurry of activity. "Can you interface with the outpost defenses? We could use any advantage we can get." Andorra Zara nodded, their forms shimmering slightly as they connected with the ancient systems. The outpost recognizes me as an authorized user. I have full access to its capabilities. As the team worked to prepare for the incoming ships, Andorazar's eyes widened suddenly. They turned to Riven, their voice urgent. "Captain, I've discovered something in the outpost database. There are other facilities like this one, scattered throughout the galaxy. Each contains unique technologies, all part of a greater plan for galactic unification." Riven's eyes narrowed. "That's valuable intel. We need to get that information to GPF headquarters immediately." "Wait," Lyra interjected, looking up from her work. "We don't know who we can trust with this knowledge. If it falls into the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic." The captain frowned, considering her words. "We can't just sit on information this important, Lyra. The GPF needs to know what we're dealing with." As the argument began to heat up, Andorazar raised a hand, silencing them both. "There may be a compromise," they said, their voice calm and measured. "The outpost systems are capable of creating a secure, encrypted database. We could design it to respond only to specific genetic markers, ensuring that only trusted individuals can access the information." Riven and Lyra exchanged glances, considering the proposal. Before they could respond, an alarm blared throughout the complex. "Multiple ships entering orbit," one of the team members announced. "It's a mixed group, GPF, synergists, and several unidentified vessels." Riven's hand moved to his weapon instinctively. "Looks like we're out of time for debate. Lyra, finish those defensive upgrades. I'll coordinate with the GPF fleet to establish a perimeter." As the team scrambled to prepare for the incoming ships, Andorazara stood at the center of the chamber, their eyes closed in concentration. The outpost hummed with power around them, ancient systems awakening to face a new era of galactic politics and potential conflict. The first shuttles began to descend towards the planet's surface, carrying representatives from a dozen different species and factions. Each sought to claim a piece of the progenitor legacy, unaware of the full scope of what lay hidden within the outpost walls. Andorazara opened their eyes, a look of commitment on their face. "We must establish a governing council," they announced. "Only through cooperation can we hope to manage the situation without bloodshed." As the team prepared to receive their visitors, the weight of their responsibilities settled upon them. The decisions made in the coming hours would shape the future of galactic civilization, for better or worse. The outpost door slid open, admitting the first wave of delegates. Andorazara stepped forward to greet them, their unique form a living testament to the power and potential of progenitor technology. As introductions began, tension filled the air. The future of the stars hung in the balance, and the next moves made within these ancient walls would determine the course of history for eons to come. As the delegates filed into the outpost, Andorazara stood at the center of the council chamber, their presence commanding attention. The air crackled with tension as representatives from various factions eyed each other warily, hands never straying far from concealed weapons. Captain Riven observed the proceedings from a corner, his fingers tapping nervously on his holstered sidearm. Lyra stood nearby, her eyes darting between the assembled dignitaries and the ancient consoles lining the walls. Suddenly, the outpost's advanced sensors blared to life, causing several delegates to flinch. Andorazar's eyes widened as they processed the incoming data. "We have a situation," they announced, their melodious voice cutting through the murmur of conversation. "A massive ship is approaching the planet. Its energy signature. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Before anyone could react, another alarm sounded. Lyra rushed to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Captain, there's a spatial anomaly forming near the planet's surface." All eyes turned to the main view screen as a shimmering distortion appeared in the atmosphere. A sleek vessel, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly sheen, emerged from the anomaly and descended rapidly towards the outpost. Unknown vessel, identify yourself. Riven barked into the comm system. There was no response as the ship touched down mere meters from the outpost entrance. The delegates watched in stunned silence as a single figure disembarked and strode purposefully towards the main doors. Andorra Zara moved to intercept the newcomer, their form shifting slightly as they prepared for potential conflict. The door slid open, revealing a tall, humanoid figure with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to hold the depths of space within them. "I am Zira," the being announced, her voice resonating with an ancient power. "I am a progenitor scientist, awakened from millennia of stasis. And I bring grave news." The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices as the delegates reacted to this startling revelation. Riven stepped forward, his hand resting on his weapon. "What kind of news?" Zira's gaze swept the room, lingering on Andorra Zara. The ship approaching this planet belongs to a group of progenitor loyalists. They seek to forcibly implement their vision of galactic unity, regardless of the consequences. Andorra Zara's form shimmered as they processed this information. "There's more to this outpost than we've revealed," they said, their voice heavy with the weight of their next words. "I possess the ability to control key systems across all progenitor outposts. It's a fail-safe mechanism designed to prevent misuse of our technology." The chamber fell silent as the implications of the statement sank in. Then chaos erupted. "We must use this power immediately," shouted a synergist representative. "Caution is advised," countered a GPF diplomat. "We don't fully understand the ramifications of such actions." As arguments raged around them, Zira approached Riven and Lyra. "I can upgrade your defenses," she offered. "My knowledge of progenitor technology far surpasses what's available in this outpost databases." Riven exchanged a glance with Lyra, weighing the potential risks against the tactical advantage. "Do it," he decided. "Lyra, work with Zira. Integrate our systems with her upgrades." As Lyra and Zira set to work, Andorra Zara raised their hands, calling for silence. "We must act quickly. I will attempt to communicate with the approaching ship." Using their connection to the outpost systems, Andorra Zara established a link with the progenitor vessel. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a stern face being similar in appearance to Zira. "Surrender the outpost and all progenitor technology immediately," the loyalist commander demanded. "Failure to comply will result in the use of force." Before Andorra Zara could respond, alarms blared once again. Riven cursed under his breath as he read the incoming data. Multiple fleets entering the system. "Looks like every major power in the galaxy got wind of what's happening here." Andorra Zara's mind raced, calculating potential outcomes. Their eyes lit up as an idea formed. "We can buy ourselves time," they announced. "Using the outpost upgraded systems, we can create an energy barrier around the planet. It will force all approaching ships to halt, giving us a chance to find a diplomatic solution." The council members exchanged uneasy glances, but with the threat of imminent conflict looming, they had little choice. "Do it," the GPF representative said, speaking for the group. Andorra Zara nodded, turning to Zira. "We'll need your expertise to modify the outpost's energy output." As they worked, the view screen showed the approaching fleets, a veritable armada of ships representing every major galactic power. Just as the first vessels entered the planet's orbit, a shimmering dome of energy expanded from the outpost, enveloping the entire world. The incoming ships pulled up short, their weapons powered but unable to penetrate the barrier. A tense standoff ensued, with the outpost at the center of a potential galactic crisis. Andorra Zara surveyed the assembled council members, their expression grave. "We need a way to address all factions simultaneously," they said. "I propose using the outpost communication array to broadcast an invitation for an emergency summit here on the planet's surface." As the council debated this proposal, Zira pulled Andorazar aside. "There's something you need to know," she whispered, her eyes darting nervously around the room. "My stasis pod contained data on a hidden progenitor facility. It houses technology that could safely reverse your genetic manipulation." Andorazar froze, their mind turning at the implications. The possibility of separating back into Andorra and Zar was both tempting and terrifying. They looked out at the shimmering energy barrier, then back at the council preparing for the emergency summit. As final preparations for the summit got underway, Andorazar stood at the heart of the outpost, the weight of the universe's destiny resting squarely on their shoulders. The next few hours would determine whether a new era of cooperation would dawn, or if the stars themselves would be engulfed in conflict. And through it all, Andorazar grappled with a deeply personal question that could change everything. The outpost communications array hummed to life, ready to broadcast their message across the stars. Andorazar took a deep breath, preparing to address the assembled fleets and potentially shape the course of galactic history. As Andorazar prepared to address the assembled fleets, they felt a sudden urge to share Zira's revelation with their closest allies. "Captain Riven, Lyra, a moment please," Andorazar said, gesturing for them to step aside. Once out of earshot from the others, they lowered their voice. "Zira has informed me of a hidden progenitor facility. It houses technology that could potentially reverse my genetic fusion." Riven's eyebrows shot up. "That's significant. How credible is this information?" Lyra frowned, her analytical mind already racing. "And what are the implications for our current situation?" Andorazar's form shimmered slightly, betraying their inner turmoil. "I believe Zira is trustworthy, but we can't be certain. As for implications, I'm not sure. But given the delicacy of our current negotiations, I propose we keep this information confidential for now." Riven nodded, his expression grave. "Agreed. We can't afford any more complications until after the summit." As they rejoined the others, the outpost sensors blared once again. The energy barrier surrounding the planet flickered, creating a temporary opening. Through this gap, a small contingent of ships from each faction began their descent towards the planet's surface. "They're here," Lyra announced, her fingers dancing across a console. "Representatives from the GPF, Synergist Zargax, and, yes, a delegation from the Progenitor Loyalist ship." Riven immediately switched into security mode. "Implement our safety protocols. I want every delegate scanned and monitored. No weapons, no unauthorized tech." As the representatives filed into the outpost, Andorazar took center stage in the makeshift summit chamber. Their unique form, a living bridge between species, commanded attention from the diverse gathering. "Esteemed delegates," Andorazar began, their voice resonating through the chamber. "We stand at a crossroads of galactic history. The power of progenitor technology offers us unprecedented opportunities, but it also presents grave risks if mishandled." The chamber buzzed with murmurs as delegates exchanged glances. Andorazar continued, "I propose a compromise. We establish a diverse council, representing all major galactic species, to oversee the gradual study and implementation of progenitor technology. This approach will allow us to harness its benefits while preserving the unique cultures and identities of our respective civilizations." As discussions unfolded, tensions quickly rose between the progenitor loyalists and other factions. A loyalist representative, his iridescent skin shimmering with barely held back anger, stood up. "This is unacceptable. The Grand Unification Plan must be implemented immediately. Any delay risks losing the momentum of our ancestors' vision." Zira stepped forward, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to her fellow progenitor. "As someone who has witnessed both the triumphs and failures of our past, I urge caution. Rushing towards unification without considering the complexities of our current galactic landscape could lead to disaster. As the debate intensified, Andorazara felt a sudden wave of discomfort wash over them. Their form began to flicker more noticeably, a sharp pain lancing through their body. Excusing themselves discreetly, they slipped out of the chamber and into a secluded area of the outpost. Leaning against a cool metal wall, Andorazara watched in horror as their body began to separate, the fusion process partially reversing itself. Panic gripped them as they struggled to maintain cohesion. Lyra, having noticed Andorazara's abrupt departure, followed them out of concern. She gasped as she witnessed the partial separation. "Hold on," she called out, rushing to Andorazara's side. Quickly, she administered a stabilizing compound developed by the synergists, her hands steady despite the urgency of the situation. The separation halted, leaving Andorazara panting and shaken. Lyra's eyes widened as the implications sank in. "We need to investigate that hidden facility Zira mentioned. Your condition is deteriorating faster than we anticipated." Back in the summit chamber, Captain Riven sees a lull in the heated discussions to present a new proposal. "What if we establish a joint task force?" he suggested, his voice cutting through the tension. This group would oversee the study and implementation of progenitor technology, ensuring that all factions have a say in the process. The idea seemed to resonate with many of the representatives. Even the progenitor loyalists, after a moment of hesitation, nodded their assent. "We would, of course, expect to play a significant role in guiding this task force," their leader stated. As the summit appeared to be reaching a tentative agreement, the outpost's long-range sensors suddenly lit up. Lyra, having returned to the chamber, rushed to a console. "Captain, we've got multiple new signatures entering the system. These aren't any ships we've seen before." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a swarm of vessels unlike anything the assembled delegates had encountered. Their designs were alien, their energy signatures exotic and unfamiliar. Zira's eyes widened in recognition. "The dormant progenitor beacons," she breathed. "They must have activated when we accessed the outpost systems. These are species from the farthest reaches of the galaxy, drawn by the call of ancient technology." The chamber erupted into chaos as delegates argued about how to respond to these new arrivals. Andorazara, having regained their composure, re-entered the summit chamber. They raised their hands, calling for silence. "This is an opportunity," Andorazara declared, their voice steady despite their recent ordeal. "We should expand our proposed task force to include representatives from these newly arrived species. True galactic cooperation must be inclusive, embracing all sentient life." As the delegates debated the suggestion, Zira approached Andorazara, her expression urgent. "I've detected unusual energy readings from the hidden progenitor facility," she whispered. "It appears to be activating on its own. We may not have much time to investigate and potentially reverse your fusion." Andorazara felt the weight of the moment pressing down upon them. The summit was at a critical juncture, with the fate of galactic cooperation hanging in the balance. Yet, their own existence as a merged being was growing increasingly unstable. They looked from the arguing delegates to Zira's concerned face, then back to Captain Riven and Lyra. The choice before them was clear: stay and guide the formation of the Galactic Task Force, or embark on a secret mission to the hidden progenitor facility. Either decision would have far-reaching consequences, not just for Andorazara, but for the entire galaxy. As the clamor of the summit rose around them, Andorazara steeled themselves to make their choice, knowing that the next few moments would shape the course of galactic history. As the clamor of the summit rose around them, Andorazara steeled themselves to make their choice, knowing that the next few moments would shape the course of galactic history. With a deep breath, they stepped forward, raising their hands to call for attention. "Esteemed delegates," Andorazara's voice cut through the noise, "I propose a brief recess to allow for private consultations." This will give us all time to consider the implications of our new arrivals and formulate a unified approach. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. As the delegates began to disperse, Andorazar quickly gathered Zira, Captain Riven, and Lyra. "We need to investigate the hidden facility immediately," they whispered urgently. "The summit can continue under the guidance of our trusted representatives." Without wasting a moment, the small team slipped away from the outpost, boarding Zira's advanced spacecraft. The ship's cloaking technology engaged, rendering them invisible to the assembled fleets as they departed the system. The journey to the remote planet took several hours, during which Andorazar's form continued to flicker and destabilize. Lyra administered stabilizing compounds, her brow furrowed with concern. As they approached the planet's surface, Zira guided them to a seemingly unremarkable expanse of rocky terrain. Landing the ship, they disembarked, following Zira to a concealed entrance hidden beneath an ancient, weather-worn rock formation. The moment Andorazar stepped into the facility, dormant systems sprang to life. Lights flickered on, illuminating winding corridors that stretched deep into the planet's crust. As they navigated the labyrinthine passageways, they encountered a series of security measures, force fields, holographic barriers, and complex locking mechanisms. Instinctively, Andorazar reached out, their hands moving in intricate patterns. Each obstacle deactivated in turn, as if responding to an ancient command. "It's remarkable," Zira breathed. "The facility recognizes your unique genetic signature." They pressed on, finally reaching a vast central chamber. At its heart stood an enormous crystal structure, pulsating with an otherworldly energy. As they approached, the crystal's glow intensified, casting dancing shadows across the chamber's metallic walls. Suddenly, Andorazar collapsed, their body convulsing as it rapidly cycled between their fused state and two distinct forms. Captain Riven and Lyra rushed to their side, using a combination of synergist technology and the facility's unfamiliar medical equipment to stabilize them. Zira worked feverishly at a nearby console, her fingers flying across the alien interface. The crystal structure responded, emitting a soft, pulsating light that enveloped Andorazar's unstable form. For hours, the team watched anxiously as the energy interacted with Andorazar's unique genetic makeup. Slowly, agonizingly, the merged being began to separate. Limbs untangled, features shifted, and finally, two distinct individuals lay before them: Andorra, the human-Scythian hybrid, and Zara, the progenitor hybrid. As consciousness returned to the newly separated pair, their eyes locked. A silent understanding passed between them, and Andorra spoke, her voice hoarse. "We're still connected. I can feel Zara's thoughts, her memories." Zara nodded, sitting up slowly. "The bond remains. We are separate, yet united in ways I never thought possible." Zira approached, her expression a mix of relief and excitement. "There's more here than just the means to reverse genetic manipulation. This facility houses a vast database of progenitor knowledge, our true history, our most advanced technologies." Captain Riven's eyes widened. That information could change everything at the summit. They began downloading the database, the enormity of their discovery sinking in. As the transfer progressed, Lyra's attention was drawn to a flashing alert on a nearby console. "Captain," she called out, her voice tense, "long-range sensors are detecting a massive energy surge in the summit system. Something's wrong." The team exchanged worried glances. Their absence had allowed tensions to escalate, potentially into open conflict. "We need to return immediately," Andorra said, standing up with newfound strength. Zara nodded in agreement, but not empty-handed. Led by their shared instincts, Andorra and Zara guided the team to a hidden hangar within the facility. There, they found several small, sleek vessels of clear progenitor design. "These ships," Zira explained, running her hand along one smooth hull, "are designed for long-range exploration. They're equipped with sensors and weapons far beyond anything currently in use. Without hesitation, Andorra and Zara boarded one of the vessels, their movements perfectly synchronized. Captain Riven and Lyra took command of another, while Zira returned to her own ship. As they launched from the hidden facility, the three vessels' advanced propulsion systems engaged, hurtling them back toward the outpost at incredible speed. Andorra and Zara, their minds working in tandem, quickly mastered the ship's controls. They arrived in the summit system to find chaos. The energy barrier around the planet flickered dangerously, on the verge of collapse. The progenitor loyalist ship faced off against the combined fleets of the other factions, weapons powered and tensions at a breaking point. Andorra and Zara shared a silent look, then activated their ship's communication array. Their voices, perfectly in sync, broadcasted across all frequencies. "This is Andorra and Zara. We urge all parties to stand down immediately and return to negotiations. We bring new information that will change everything." The appearance of the highly advanced progenitor ships piloted by the now separated Andorra and Zara shifted the balance of power instantly. The loyalist ship, recognizing the superior technology, powered down its weapons. The other factions, awed by the display, signaled their willingness to resume talks. As they approached the outpost, Andorra and Zara prepared to re-enter the summit chamber. Their unique bond, combined with the knowledge and resources they had uncovered, positioned them as pivotal figures in shaping the future of galactic cooperation. The progenitor vessels docked smoothly with the outpost. As the airlock cycled, Andorra and Zara exchanged a final, silent communication. They stepped forward together, ready to guide the galaxy into a new era of understanding and technological advancement. As the airlock doors slid open, Andorra and Zara stepped into the summit chamber, their synchronized movements drawing all eyes to them. A hush fell over the assembled delegates as they took in the sight of the once merged beings now standing as separate individuals. Andorra's hybrid features contrasted with Zara's distinctly progenitor appearance, yet their shared posture and matching expressions hinted at a connection that transcended physical form. Captain Riven and Lyra followed close behind, their faces a mix of anticipation and concern. Zira brought up the rear, her datapad clutched tightly to her chest, brimming with the newly acquired progenitor knowledge. Andorra took a step forward, her voice clear and steady as she addressed the chamber. "Esteemed delegates, we return with information that will reshape our understanding of the galaxy and our place within it." Zara seamlessly continued. "We have uncovered a vast repository of progenitor knowledge and technology that holds the key to our shared future." The chamber erupted into a cacophony of excited whispers and urgent questions. The progenitor loyalist representative leaned forward, eyes wide with interest. "What exactly have you discovered?" Andorra and Zara exchanged a glance, their movements mirroring each other perfectly. They nodded to Zira, who stepped forward and activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. The air shimmered as three-dimensional images materialized, showcasing advanced terraforming techniques capable of transforming barren worlds into lush, habitable planets in a fraction of the time previously thought possible. The display shifted, revealing schematics for faster-than-light drives that could reduce interstellar travel times by orders of magnitude. "These are but a fraction of the advancements we can achieve together," Andorra explained, her voice filled with conviction. Zara added, "The progenitors left us a legacy of knowledge and technology meant to be shared and used for the betterment of all species." The chamber buzzed with excitement as delegates from various factions leaned in to study the holographic displays. Questions flew back and forth, with Andorra, Zara, and Zero working in tandem to provide answers and context. As the initial fervor subsided, a representative from one of the newly arrived species stepped forward. The alien's iridescent scale shimmered under the chamber's lights as it spoke, its translator converting a series of clicks and whistles into comprehensible speech. While we are impressed by these discoveries, we cannot help but feel excluded from the process. How can we trust that this knowledge will be shared equitably when we were not even present for the initial discussions? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber as other representatives of the new arrivals voiced similar concerns. Andorra and Zara shared another silent exchange before Andorra addressed the chamber once more. Your concerns are valid and appreciated. In light of these new developments in the expansion of our galactic community, I propose the creation of an inclusive galactic council. This council would have rotating membership, ensuring fair representation for all species, both established and newly discovered. The proposal sent a new wave of excitement through the chamber. Delegates huddled in small groups, discussing the implications and potential structure of such a council. The progenitor loyalist representative, who had been watching the proceedings with increasing interest, raised a hand to speak. We are intrigued by this proposal. Perhaps there is a way to incorporate elements of our unification plan into this new council structure. As discussions intensified, Captain Riven and Lyra slipped out of the chamber to begin their work on cataloging the progenitor vessels. They assembled a diverse team of engineers from various factions, setting up a temporary research station in one of the outpost hangars. Lyra ran her hand along the smooth hull of one of the progenitor ships, her eyes wide with wonder. These vessels are centuries beyond anything we've ever seen. The potential applications are staggering. Captain Riven nodded, his expression a mix of excitement and caution. Indeed, but we must be careful. Such advanced technology could easily become a source of conflict if not managed properly. Back in the summit chamber, Zira had taken on the role of historical advisor, providing crucial context to the ongoing discussions. She stood before a group of delegates, gesturing to a holographic timeline of progenitor history. We must learn from the past to avoid repeating its mistakes, Zira explained, her voice grave. The progenitor's pursuit of genetic perfection led to unforeseen consequences. We must approach these technologies with caution and ethical considerations. As the summit progressed, Andorra and Zara found themselves at the center of negotiations, working tirelessly to bridge gaps between opposing factions. However, their efforts were occasionally interrupted by sudden fluctuations in their telepathic bond. During one such episode, Andorra stumbled mid-sentence, her hand flying to her temple. Zara immediately stepped in, seamlessly continuing the thought as if nothing had happened. The incident did not go unnoticed by the medical teams present, who exchanged worried glances. Despite these challenges, Andorra and Zara pressed on, their unique perspective as former merged beings providing invaluable insights into finding common ground. Their efforts began to bear fruit as breakthrough agreements were reached on shared research initiatives and a non-aggression pact among the major powers. The progenitor loyalists, who had initially been the most resistant to compromise, began to show signs of flexibility. Impressed by Andorra and Zara's ability to maintain their individual identities while embodying the spirit of unity, they proposed a modified version of their grand unification plan. We see now that true unity does not require the loss of individuality, the loyalist representative announced. We propose a gradual implementation of our plan, with voluntary participation and safeguards to protect the unique cultures of all species. As the summit neared its conclusion, a group of synergist scientists approached Andorra and Zara during a brief recess. The lead scientist, a tall, slender being with bioluminescent markings, addressed them with terrifying excitement. We've been observing your unique physiology and telepathic bond, the scientist explained. We believe that studying your condition could lead to groundbreaking treatments for other hybrid beings and potentially unlock new forms of interspecies communication. Would you be willing to participate in our research? Andorra and Zara shared a long look, their silent communication evident even to observers. Finally, they turned back to the scientist and nodded in unison. We would be honored to contribute to this research, Andorra replied. Zara added, If our experience can help foster greater understanding between species, then it will have been worth it. As the final day of the summit dawned, a sense of anticipation and nervous energy permeated the outpost. Delegates gathered in the chamber, preparing to vote on the proposed Galactic Council structure and the implementation of progenitor technologies. Andorra and Zara took their places at the center of the chamber, ready to deliver a final joint address before the voting began. As they opened their mouths to speak, a piercing alarm suddenly blared throughout the outpost, causing everyone to jump in surprise. Captain Riven burst into the chamber, his face pale with urgency. Long-range sensors have detected a massive energy surge in a nearby star system. Initial readings suggest it's another progenitor facility, possibly even more powerful than this outpost. The chamber erupted into chaos as delegates demanded information and argued about how to proceed. Andorra and Zara stood still amidst the commotion, their eyes locked in silent communication as they weighed their options. The fate of galactic cooperation hung in the balance. Should they lead an expedition to investigate this new energy source, potentially uncovering even more groundbreaking technology? Or should they remain at the outpost to see the summit through to its conclusion, ensuring that the progress made over the past days wasn't lost? As the clamor in the chamber grew, Andorra and Zar knew that their decision would shape the future of interspecies relations and the implementation of progenitor technology throughout the galaxy. The weight of this responsibility settled upon them as they prepared to make their choice. Decision. The cacophony in the chamber grew louder as delegates shouted over one another, demanding immediate action or urging caution. Andorra and Zar locked eyes once more, their silent communication conveying volumes in an instant. With a slight nod to each other, they made their choice. Andorra stepped forward, raising her hands to quiet the crowd. "Esteemed delegates, we have a proposal." The chamber fell silent, all eyes fixed on the hybrid being. "I will remain here to oversee the summit and voting process," Andorra announced, her voice steady and authoritative. "Meanwhile, Zara will lead an expedition to investigate this new progenitor facility." Zara moved to stand beside her counterpart. "We believe this approach will allow us to address both the immediate concerns of the summit and the potential opportunities, or threats, posed by this new discovery." Captain Riven nodded his approval, already mentally preparing for the mission ahead. "I'll assemble a team immediately." "I'm coming too," Lyra interjected, her eyes gleaming with excitement at the prospect of examining more progenitor technology. As the expedition team began to form, with representatives from various factions volunteering to join, Andorra turned her attention back to the summit. "Now, let us proceed with the voting process. The future of our galactic cooperation hangs in the balance, and we must not lose sight of the progress we've made here." While Andorra worked to keep the summit on track, Zara led her team to the hangar where the progenitor vessels were docked. The sleek, otherworldly design of the ships still inspired awe in all who saw them. "Prepare for departure," Zara commanded as they boarded one of the vessels. "We don't know what we're flying into, so stay alert." The ship's systems hummed to life at Zara's touch, responding to her progenitor DNA. As they lifted off, Zara felt a momentary disorientation, a side effect of her separation from Andorra. She pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the task at hand. Back in the summit chamber, Andorra guided the delegates through the intricacies of the proposed Galactic Council structure. Her unique perspective as a former merge being allowed her to see potential conflicts and offer solutions that satisfied multiple parties. By implementing a rotating membership, Andorra explained, gesturing to a holographic display, we ensure that all species, regardless of their technological advancement or population size, have an equal voice in galactic affairs. As the voting began, Andorra felt a distant pull. Zara's expedition had encountered an obstacle. She closed her eyes briefly, concentrating on the faint telepathic link they still shared. Aboard the progenitor vessel, Zara and her team faced an imposing sight. A massive energy field enveloped the entire star system, shimmering with an otherworldly light. "It's beautiful," Lyra whispered, her face pressed against the view screen. Captain Riven's expression was far less awestruck. "And impenetrable. Our sensors can't make heads or tails of it." Zara moved to the ship's control interface, her hands dancing over the unfamiliar controls. "Let's see if this vessel's advanced systems can find us a way through." Despite Zara's expertise with progenitor technology, the barrier remained steadfast. After several failed attempts, she was forced to concede defeat. "We need to report back to the summit," Zara announced, her frustration evident. "This obstacle is beyond our current capabilities." As news of the expedition's setback reached the outpost, the carefully maintained order of the summit threatened to dissolve into chaos once more. Delegates argued fiercely, some calling for an immediate show of force against the barrier, others advocating for retreat and isolation. Andorra stood at the center of the storm, her mind racing. Drawing upon the memories and knowledge she shared with Zara, she formulated a plan. "Silence, please." Andorra's voice cut through the din. "I have a proposal that may satisfy all parties." The chamber quieted, all attention focused on her. "We have at our disposal the most advanced progenitor technology ever discovered, as well as the combined scientific knowledge of every species represented here." Andorra began. "I propose we use these resources to create a specialized probe capable of penetrating the energy field." Murmurs of interest rippled through the crowd. Andorra continued. "This project will serve as a practical demonstration of what we can achieve through cooperation. It will also allow us to gather crucial information about the facility without risking lives." The proposal sparked a flurry of activity. The summit temporarily adjourned as teams of scientists and engineers from various species came together, pooling their knowledge and resources to construct the probe. In the outpost's main laboratory, representatives from a dozen different worlds worked side by side, their differences set aside in pursuit of a common goal. Andorra moved among them, offering guidance and encouragement where needed. As the work on the probe progressed, Andorra received another telepathic flash from Zara. Her eyes widened as she processed the information. "Stop!" Andorra called out, her voice cutting through the buzz of activity in the lab. "We received new information from the expedition team." All eyes turned to her as she relayed Zara's discovery. "They've detected faint transmissions from within the energy field. The signals appear to be in an ancient progenitor dialect." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled scientists and engineers. The possibility of an active progenitor presence within the field raised countless new questions and possibilities. With renewed vigor, the teams returned to their work on the probe, now equipped with additional sensors to analyze the mysterious transmissions. Hours later, as the final adjustments were made to the probe, Andorra stood before the reassembled summit delegates. The chamber buzzed with anticipation as she prepared to address the gathering. "Esteemed representatives," Andorra began, her voice carrying across the silent room, "the probe is ready for launch. We stand at the threshold of a discovery that could reshape our understanding of the galaxy and our place within it." As she spoke, the probe was loaded into a launch bay, its systems humming with power. On the progenitor vessel still stationed outside the energy field, Zara and her team watched with suspenseful pause. "Initiating launch sequence," a technician announced over the comm system. The probe shot forth from the outpost, streaking across space towards a shimmering barrier. As it approached, the energy field fluctuated, creating a momentary opening. The probe slipped through, disappearing into the unknown depths beyond. A tense silence fell over both the summit chamber and the expedition vessel as they waited for the probe's first transmission. Andorra and Zara, separated by vast distances but connected by their unique bond, shared a moment of anxious anticipation. Suddenly, data began to flood in. Holographic displays in the chamber and aboard Zara's ship sprang to life. revealing images of a sprawling progenitor city complex untouched by time. Gasps of awe echoed through the chamber as the delegates took in the sight. At the center of the complex stood a massive crystalline structure, eerily similar to the one where Andorra and Zara had been separated. As the probe delved deeper into the city, its sensors detected movement. The chamber held its collective breath, watching as the probe's camera focused on a group of beings emerging from a central building. The image sharpened, revealing figures that defied easy classification. They appeared to be a blend of various species characteristics, a living embodiment of the genetic manipulation technology the summit had been debating. Before anyone could fully process this earth-shattering revelation, alarms blared from the probe's telemetry. Energy weapons fired from the city's automated defense systems, striking the probe and disabling its propulsion. The last image transmitted before contact was lost showed the group of hybrid beings moving purposefully towards the probe's location. The summit erupted into frenzied activity. Delegates shouted over one another, some calling for immediate military action, others urging diplomatic outreach. Andorra raised her hands, calling for order. "We must act quickly but thoughtfully," she announced. "I propose we form a specialized task force to establish contact with these beings. We need to understand who they are and what their presence means for our galaxy." As debate raged in the chamber, Andorra felt a familiar tug through her telepathic link. On the expedition vessel, Zara had come to a decision. "We're going in," Zara announced to her team, her eyes fixed on the shimmering energy barrier. "Prepare the ship for atmospheric entry. We're going to replicate the probe's method of penetration." Captain Riven nodded grimly, initiating pre-flight checks. Lyra's fingers flew over the sensor controls, analyzing the barrier for any sign of weakness. As Zara's team prepared for their daring attempt to breach the energy field, Andorra called for a vote on the proposed task force. The future of galactic relations hung in the balance, with the summit poised to make decisions that would echo across the stars for generations to come. The progenitor vessel's engines flared to life, pushing against the shimmering barrier as alarms blared throughout the ship. Zara gripped the controls tightly, her merged memories providing insight into the advanced technology at her fingertips. As they edged closer to the field, the ship's hull groaned under the strain, and for a moment, it seemed as though they would be repelled. Then, with a sudden lurch, the barrier parted and they were through. Through. The ship shuddered violently as it pierced the energy field, alarms blaring throughout the vessel. Zara's hands flew across the controls, compensating for the sudden turbulence. Captain Riven gripped his seat, fists clenched, while Lyra's eyes remained glued to the sensor readouts. "We're in," Zara announced, her voice tight with concentration. "Stabilizing our descent." As the progenitor vessel steadied, the team's attention was drawn to the sprawling cityscape below. Crystalline spires stretched towards the sky, their surfaces shimmering with an otherworldly light. The city's architecture was a blend of organic forms and geometric precision, unlike anything they had ever seen. Suddenly, Zara gasped, her eyes unfocusing for a moment. "Andorra," she whispered, feeling a surge of emotions and information flood through their telepathic link. Back at the summit, Andorra stood frozen. Her hand pressed to her temple as she received Zara's transmission. The chamber around her erupted into chaos as the expanded energy field engulfed the entire star system, cutting off all external communications. "Order! We must have order!" Andorra's voice cut through the panic, her authority amplified by the urgency of the situation. "We are not helpless. We have the combined knowledge and resources of our entire galaxy at our disposal." As she spoke, Andorra began organizing the delegates into crisis management teams. "We need to study this energy field, find a way to communicate through it, and potentially counteract its effects. Every species here has unique insights and technologies. It's time to put aside our differences and work together." The delegates, galvanized by Andorra's leadership, set to work. Scientists from a dozen worlds huddled over makeshift workstations, their varied anatomies and technologies creating a surreal tableau of cooperation. Meanwhile, Zara's team approached the central crystal formation of the progenitor city. As they neared, a group of figures emerged from a nearby structure. The expedition team watched in awe as these beings approached, each one a unique blend of familiar species characteristics. Captain Riven's hand hovered near his weapon. "Steady," Zara cautioned. "We're here to make contact, not start a fight." The group of hybrid beings stopped a short distance from the ship. One figure, taller than the rest, stepped forward. "I am Xanon, custodian of the last enclave," it announced, its voice a harmonious blend of tones. "We welcome you to our awakening." Zara stepped off the ship, her heart racing. "I am Zara, representative of the Galactic Summit. We come in peace and with great curiosity." Xanon nodded, its iridescent eyes studying Zara intently. "You carry the mark of our creators, yet you are not fully of their kind. Fascinating. Come, there is much to discuss." As Xanon led them towards the central crystal structure, Lyra couldn't contain her excitement. "This is incredible. The genetic manipulation technology at work here is beyond anything we've ever seen." Captain Riven remained cautious. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to understand their intentions first." Inside the crystal structure, Xanon revealed the purpose of the Enclave. "We are the guardians of the progenitor's vision, a unified galaxy bound by shared knowledge and harmonious coexistence. We awaken periodically to assess the galaxy's readiness for reunification." Zara listened intently, her mind racing with the implications. As Xanon spoke, she felt another surge through her link with Andorra. The strain of maintaining the connection over such a vast distance was taking its toll, causing her vision to blur momentarily. At the summit, Andorra staggered, steadying herself against the console. The prototype device they had developed crackled to life, creating a small window in the energy field. A garbled transmission came through, a Zargax battlecruiser, now trapped within the expanded field, demanding explanations. Andorra took a deep breath, composing herself. "This is Andorra, acting chair of the Galactic Summit. We are experiencing a system-wide phenomenon and are working to tenacity it. Please remain calm and await further instructions." As she coordinated the response to this new complication, Andorra felt another wave of information from Zara. Images of the Enclave, snippets of conversation with Xanon, and a growing sense of the incredible potential and danger of the progenitor technology flooded her mind. In the Enclave, Zara and her team were led to a vast chamber housing a colossal database. Xanon gestured towards the pulsing core of the system. "Here lies a complete genetic record of countless species, including many long lost to time. This knowledge is both our greatest treasure and our heaviest burden." The revelation sent shockwaves through the expedition team. Captain Riven's eyes narrowed. That kind of information could be a weapon in the wrong hands. We need to approach this carefully. Lyra, however, was already moving towards one of the access terminals. "Think of what we could learn, the scientific advancements we could make." As tensions rose within the team, Zara felt the strain of her dual role, balancing the expedition's competing interests while maintaining diplomatic relations with Xanon and the Enclave. Sensing the growing unease, Xanon stepped forward. "Perhaps it is time we bridge the gap between your summit and our Enclave. We have the means to establish a quantum communication link, allowing for real-time exchange of information and joint decision-making." Zara nodded, relief washing over her. "Yes, that would be immensely helpful. Our combined knowledge and perspectives will be crucial in navigating this situation." As preparations for the quantum link began, Zara felt compelled to explore further. While the others were occupied, she slipped away to a secluded terminal, her fingers dancing across the unfamiliar interface. What she discovered sent a chill down her spine. Hidden deep within the database was information about a cosmic nexus, a point in space-time where the very fabric of the universe could be manipulated. The implications were staggering. Instant travel across the galaxy, or worse, a weapon of unimaginable power. Zara's mind raced. Should she share this information? What if it fell into the wrong hands? As she grappled with the decision, the quantum link hummed to life, ready to connect the Enclave with the summit. The destiny of the universe hung in the balance, and Zara stood at the crossroads, the weight of her knowledge pressing down upon her. Just as Zara was about to share her discovery, a sudden surge of energy coursed through the Enclave systems. The quantum link flared to life, bathing the chamber in an eerie, pulsating glow. "It's working," Lyra exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement as she monitored the connection stability. But something was wrong. The energy reading spiked far beyond expected levels, causing consoles to spark and alarms to blare. Zara felt a sharp pain in her head as her link with Andorra intensified beyond anything she'd experienced before. In the summit chamber, Andorra staggered, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of sensory information. "We need to stabilize the connection," she gasped, fighting to maintain her composure. As the delegates scrambled to address the power fluctuations, a series of containment field failures cascaded through the facility. Alien specimens, collected for study from across the galaxy, found themselves suddenly free. Chaos erupted as strange creatures of various shapes and sizes scurried, slithered, and flew through the chamber. Delegates dove for cover as a gelatinous, multi-eyed being oozed its way across the floor, leaving a trail of corrosive slime in its wake. Andorra's voice cut through the pandemonium. "Security teams, contain the specimens. Science personnel, work on restoring those fields." She projected an aura of calm authority, even as she grappled with the disorienting sensations flooding through her link with Zara. Back in the Enclave, the power surge had activated long-dormant progenitor systems. Zara, driven by an inexplicable urge, found herself drawn to a newly illuminated chamber. As she stepped inside, a swirling vortex of energy enveloped her. "Zara," Captain Riven shouted, reaching for her, but it was too late. The chamber sealed itself, leaving the team to watch helplessly as Zara's form blurred and shifted within the maelstrom. Moments later, the chamber opened and Zara emerged. She stood taller, her skin shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. When she opened her eyes, they gleamed with newfound knowledge and power. I can feel the systems," Zara said, her voice resonating with a new timbre. "It's like they're extensions of my own body." Xanon approached, his expression a mix of awe and concern. "You've undergone genetic recombination. The chamber has altered your very essence, integrating progenitor DNA into your genetic structure." As Zara acclimated to her enhanced state, Andorra coordinated the containment efforts at the summit. She directed teams with precision, her heightened connection to Zara providing her with flashes of insight into progenitor technology. "There," Andorra pointed to a previously unnoticed panel. "That controls the backup containment fields. Activate it." A technician complied, and a shimmering energy field sprang to life, corralling several of the escaped specimens. Slowly but surely, order began to return to the chamber. Xanon, observing the unfolding events through the quantum link, spoke to Zara. "Your bond with Andorra has grown stronger. Perhaps we can use this connection to share our knowledge with the summit." Zara nodded, understanding the implications. It could help bridge the gap between our civilizations, but the strain... She didn't need to finish the thought. Already, she could feel the physical toll of the enhanced link. Her head throbbed, and her vision occasionally blurred. Through their connection, she sensed Andorra experiencing similar discomfort. As they prepared to attempt this unprecedented knowledge transfer, alarms blared throughout the Enclave. Captain Riven rushed to a sensor station, his face grim. "We've got incoming," he announced. Small, stealthy probes. They matched Zargak's design. Zara's eyes narrowed. They're trying to take advantage of the chaos. We can't let them access this technology. Outside the expanded energy field, aboard the Zargak's battlecruiser, Commander Vex watched with predatory anticipation as his probes streaked towards their targets. "Soon," he hissed, "the secrets of the progenitors will be ours." But before anyone could react to this new threat, a powerful signal washed over the entire system. The energy field fluctuated wildly, and progenitor systems throughout the Enclave sputtered and surged. "What now?" Lyra exclaimed, her fingers flying over her console. The answer came in the form of a massive ship decloaking between the Enclave and the summit location. Its design was like nothing they'd ever seen, organic yet mechanical, pulsing with energy that seemed to bend space around it. A transmission crackled through all communication channels. "We are the Nomad Collective," a chorus of voices announced in perfect unison. "We have watched and waited. Now we step forward to claim our place in this galaxy's future." As the Nomad ship hung in space, a silent challenge to all present, Andorra and Zara locked eyes through their quantum link. They knew, without speaking, that the next few moments would shape the course of galactic history. Xanon stepped forward, his voice grave. "There is something you must know. The progenitors left a failsafe, a system to prevent the misuse of their technology. It requires compatible individuals from various species to activate or deactivate key systems." He turned to Zara and, through the link, to Andorra. "You too, with your unique physiologies and bond, are prime candidates to interface with this failsafe. But the process, it would fundamentally alter you both, perhaps even merge your consciousnesses permanently." The weight of this revelation hung heavy in the air. Andorra and Zara stood at a crossroads, their decision poised to affect countless lives across the galaxy. As they grappled with this monumental choice, the Zargak's probes drew ever closer. The Nomad Collective ship pulsed with untold power, and the delegates of the Galactic Summit waited with nervous excitement. The next move would determine the future of not just their civilizations, but of the entire cosmic order. Tapestry. The fate of civilizations hung in the balance, with Andorra and Zara at the center of it all. Xanon's revelation about the progenitor failsafe system sent a ripple of tension through the room. Andorra and Zara exchanged a look, their connection allowing them to share a moment of silent understanding. "We'll do it," Zara said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the decision. Andorra nodded in agreement. "The risks to ourselves are outweighed by the potential benefits to the galaxy." Xanon led them to a specialized chamber within the Enclave, its walls pulsing with an otherworldly energy. As Andorra and Zara stepped inside, the expedition team and summit attendees gathered around screens displaying the quantum communication link. Captain Riven's face was grim. "Are you certain about this?" "We are," Andorra replied, her voice echoing through the link. The chamber sealed, and a swirling vortex of energy enveloped the two women. Their bodies began to shift and change, their DNA recombining with elements from the vast progenitor database. Zara's already altered form took on new characteristics, while Andorra's body underwent even more dramatic transformations. Outside the chamber, alarms blared as the energy field surrounding the star system became unstable. The Nomad Collective ship pulsed with power, launching probes towards key progenitor installations. Captain Riven sprang into action. "All ships, intercept those probes. We can't let them reach their targets." A chaotic space battle ensued, with ships from various factions working together to defend the progenitor technology. The Enclave's ancient defense systems activated, providing unexpected support to the defenders. As the genetic alteration progressed, Andorra and Zara's minds merged once again. This time, however, the process was controlled and purposeful. Their shared consciousness expanded, encompassing the vast knowledge contained within the progenitor database. Lyra monitored their vital signs, her eyes wide with wonder. Their neural patterns are synchronizing at an unprecedented rate. It's as if their minds are becoming one with the progenitor systems. Inside the chamber, Andorra and Zara experienced a rush of information and sensations. They saw the intricate web of the cosmic nexus network, understanding its potential for instantaneous travel across the galaxy. They felt the pulse of every progenitor installation, from the enclave to the summit location and beyond. As their transformation neared completion, they instinctively reached out with their newfound abilities. The fluctuating energy field stabilized, and the escaped specimens at the summit were suddenly contained by reactivated force fields. The Zargax battlecruiser, which had been powering up its weapons, found itself immobilized by a dormant progenitor defense system. Commander Vex hissed in frustration as his ship's systems went dark. The chamber opened, revealing Andorra and Zara's transformed forms. They stood tall, their bodies a harmonious blend of human, Kytion, and progenitor characteristics. An otherworldly aura surrounded them, commanding the attention of all present. Xanon approached, bowing his head in respect. The fail-safe guardians have awakened. How do you feel? Andorra spoke, her voice resonating with newfound power. We are. More. The knowledge of ages flows through us. Zar continued. Yet we remain ourselves. Our memories, our identities, they are intact, but enhanced. A transmission cut through the awed silence. The Nomad collective ship hung in space, its organic mechanical form pulsing with energy. Guardians, the chorus of voices intoned. We seek audience. Andorra and Zara shared a glance, their enhanced minds processing the situation in an instant. We will hear you, they replied in unison. The Nomad representatives materialized in the chamber, their forms shimmering and translucent. We are seekers of advanced civilizations, they explained. Our confederation spans galaxies, and we see great potential in your progenitor legacy. Xanon stepped forward, his eyes alight with possibility. Perhaps this is an opportunity for a new era of cooperation, a unified council to oversee the implementation of progenitor technology and the development of the cosmic nexus network. Andorra and Zara nodded, their merged consciousness allowing them to see the far-reaching implications of such an alliance. We will serve as mediators in this process, they declared. As news of the transformation and the Nomad collective's arrival spread, the summit erupted into a flurry of activity. Factions that had been at odds now found themselves reassessing their positions in light of these momentous events. Captain Riven, working closely with Lyra and the Synergist scientists, began drafting plans for a joint research initiative. If we can harness the cosmic nexus network, he explained, we could establish instantaneous communication and travel between member worlds of a galactic alliance. The Enclave leadership, led by Xanon, offered to share their advanced genetic engineering techniques. Under the oversight of our new guardians, he proposed, we can ensure ethical implementation of these technologies. As representatives from various factions gathered to hear Andorra and Zara address them, the air crackled with anticipation. The fate of countless civilizations hung on their words, the potential for a new galactic order within reach. Andorra and Zara stepped forward, their transformed bodies radiating power and wisdom. They surveyed the assembled crowd, including the shimmering forms of the Nomad collective representatives. As they prepared to speak, the weight of their responsibility as fail-safe guardians settled upon them, along with the knowledge that their next words would shape the course of galactic history. History. As Andorra and Zara opened their mouths to address the assembly, a sudden pulse of energy surged through the progenitor systems. The air crackled with electric tension, causing the hair on everyone's necks to stand on end. Shimmering portals materialized throughout the city complex and summit location, their swirling surfaces rippling with iridescent light. Before anyone could react, delegates from various factions were pulled into these gateways, their surprise cries echoing as they vanished. Andorra and Zara's eyes widened, their enhanced senses immediately grasping the gravity of the situation. They shared a quick glance, their merged consciousness allowing for instant communication. "The Cosmic Nexus Network," Zara said, her voice tinged with awe and concern. "It's activated prematurely." Andorra nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We need to act fast. This is more than just a malfunction." Drawing on their newfound abilities as fail-safe guardians, they extended their awareness through the progenitor systems. In an instant, they perceived the true nature of what was unfolding. "It's a test," Andorra announced, her voice carrying across the chaotic chamber. "A final fail-safe protocol designed by the progenitors." Zar continued, "They want to see if we're truly ready for galactic unification." Captain Riven, who had managed to avoid being pulled into a portal, approached them. "What can we do?" "Stabilize the portals," Andorra instructed. "Work with Xanon and the Enclave engineers. We need to prevent further uncontrolled transportation." As Riven nodded and rushed off, Andorra and Zara closed their eyes, projecting their consciousness across the Nexus network. Their awareness expanded, encompassing distant worlds and the scattered delegates, now navigating unfamiliar terrain. On a harsh desert planet, they observed a group of Zargak soldiers, their weapons rendered useless by the intense heat and sand. Nearby, a team of Synergist researchers worked feverishly to construct a shelter using local materials. Commander Vex, his scales dry and cracking, approached the lead Synergist scientist with uncharacteristic humility. "Our technology is failing in this environment. Perhaps we could combine our knowledge?" The scientist, initially wary, nodded. "We'll need to work together if we're going to survive this." Elsewhere, on a lush jungle world, GPF officers found themselves fighting alongside members of the Nomad Collective. A swarm of enormous, insectoid creatures descended upon them, forcing the unlikely allies to coordinate their efforts. "Cover the left flank," a GPF lieutenant shouted, her voice barely audible over the chittering of the creatures. A Nomad representative, its form shimmering, responded by emitting a high-pitched frequency that drove back a portion of the swarm. "We must reach higher ground," it intoned. "Our combined strengths will see us through." Back at the central Nexus hub, Captain Riven and Lyra worked tirelessly alongside Xanon and the Enclave engineers. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as they manipulated complex holographic interfaces, striving to bring the system under control. "We're making progress," Lyra announced, her fingers flying over a virtual keyboard. "But we need to synchronize the portal frequencies to create stable return points." Xanon nodded, his ancient eyes gleaming with perseverance. "I believe I can modify our containment field technology to achieve that. Riven, can you reroute power from the auxiliary systems?" As the hours passed, Andorra and Zara maintained their vigil, observing the trials unfolding across the galaxy. They provided subtle guidance where needed, a whispered insight here, a moment of clarity there, but never directly interfering. They watched as former adversaries set aside their differences, pooling their unique skills and knowledge to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Species that had once been at war now fought side by side against hostile environments and dangerous fauna. Slowly, groups of delegates began returning through the stabilized portals. Each arrival brought a wave of relief and excitement, as the transformed individuals shared their experiences with those who had remained behind. The Zargak's commander, his normally imperious demeanor softened by his ordeal, approached the Synergist leader. "Your people's ingenuity saved us all," he admitted. "Perhaps it's time we considered a research exchange program." Representatives from minor factions, who had played crucial roles in various survival situations, found themselves surrounded by attentive listeners. Their voices, once ignored in galactic politics, now carried new weight. As the last group stumbled through a shimmering portal, Andorra and Zar materialized in the center of the summit chamber. Their appearance had subtly changed during their cosmic vigil, their forms now shimmering with the energy of the Nexus itself. The chamber fell silent as the fail-safe guardians prepared to address the assembled delegates. The air crackled with anticipation, every being present acutely aware that they stood on the precipice of a new era in galactic history. Andorra and Zara raised their hands in unison, a holographic display of the cosmic Nexus network materializing above them. The intricate web of connections spanned the galaxy, pulsing with potential. "You have been tested," they spoke, their voices resonating with newfound authority. "And you have proven yourselves worthy of the progenitor legacy." The delegates listened in rapt attention as Andorra and Zar began to explain the true nature of the trial they had just endured, and the implications it held for the future of galactic civilization.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.